What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty. Join my Discord if you want to chat and share your thoughts, the link is in the description. 2 Chains 031 Papy Island. The pirate group finally had a name, and the three of them were very happy. Char was even more ambitious and promised that he would let the name, Blood Yaksha, resound throughout the Grand Line in the future. And Kid, at Char's suggestion, had the pirate group's logo tattooed on his forehead, just in time to use the devil logo to cover the mark representing the celestial dragon's slaves. Everything was developing in a good direction. The 15th day after departure, we have arrived at Papy Island, Froya shouted from the high watchtower. Char and Kid, who were lying on the deck basking in the sun, shuddered and immediately jumped up from the deck, screaming and running to the bow to watch. Since Char's points were used up and he could no longer exchange for physical strength and healing potions, the two stopped their crazy training. Char, the hands-off boss, spent his boring days eating, sleeping, and basking in the sun. Kid was diligent in maintaining the Yaksha at first, but after a few days, he was led astray by the captain and joined the lazy team. He wasted his life lying on the deck all day. So the two of them were bored to the extreme these days. When they heard that they had arrived at a new place to stay, they were of course very excited. A vague outline appeared in the distance where the sea and the sky met. It was obviously the Papy Island that Freya mentioned. "Is this Papy Island? It looks so big," Char exclaimed, because even from a long distance, he could feel that the island was very wide. Advertisement, of course, this is one of the few prosperous islands in East Blue. At this time, Freya had climbed down from the watchtower and stood behind the two of them and said, "Since we chose a faster route, this is the last stop before arriving at Logue Town. You must buy supplies for me after docking," Froya said viciously, as if he was dissatisfied with the laziness of Char and the others these days. Char and the others were so scared that they quickly patted their chests and promised to arrange everything properly. Soon, the Yasha approached Papy Island and slowly sailed into the prosperous dock. As soon as Char and his two friends got off the boat, they felt the extraordinariness of this island. This busy dock alone can accommodate hundreds of ships of the Yasha class. You know, the port of the Kingdom of Goa can only berth more than 100 ships. What surprised Char and his friends even more was that the hundreds of berths at the dock were almost full at this time, but there were still ships waiting to enter the port. At this rate, the port will be full in less than half a day. What's going on? It seems a bit unusually lively here. Kid looked around and said, "Yes, look at those ships waiting to enter the port. You can tell at a glance that they are foreign ships, and most of them are pirate ships. Something must have happened here." Froya whispered, "It's really strange. So many pirates gathered together and didn't fight or make a fuss. Instead, they seem to be attending some kind of gathering." Advertisement. Char frowned. After that, he grabbed a busy dock worker and asked. The worker was stunned by Char's question and said, "You don't know this? Aren't you here to attend the auction?" "Auction?" Char and the other two looked at each other. "It seems that you were just passing by. Let me tell you, these pirates and merchants are here to attend the auction held every 3 years on Papy Island," the worker said with a proud tone. It turns out that the reason why this Papy Island is so prosperous is not only because of its superior geographical location and vast territory. Another reason is that a large-scale auction event is held here every 3 years. In this 3-day event, rare treasures from all over the world and even from the Grand Line will be auctioned, which will attract countless merchants and pirates to participate here. At this time, the island is overcrowded and the business of bars, hotels and other industries is extremely hot. Over time, the popularity here has become very prosperous, and it has become a place where merchants and pirates like to stay on East Blue. However, Char still has a puzzled point, that is, so many people of all kinds will not cause trouble when they gather together. Hearing Char's question, the worker laughed and said, "The Ralph family is in charge of Papy Island. As long as they stay on this island for 1 day, no one will dare to make trouble here." After that, the worker said goodbye to the 3 people and went to work elsewhere. It seems that this island is not simple. "Who is this Ralph family?" Kid pondered. "No matter what their background is, it has nothing to do with us. We are just here to purchase some supplies. If possible, we can also visit the auction. Our goal is Grand Line, not such a small place," Char laughed. So the 3 left the dock and went to Papy town. As soon as they entered the town, the 3 felt the atmosphere of carnival. The whole town was decorated with lights and full of carnival feeling. The streets were full of pirates holding beer and making a lot of noise, and the auction leaflets were flying everywhere. Char picked up a leaflet from the ground out of curiosity, and his face was shocked when he saw it. "What's wrong?" Seeing that Char looked strange, Freya and the others couldn't help asking. "Hey, this auction is really interesting. There's actually a devil fruit auction," Char laughed. "Devil fruit?" Freya and Kid looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. 032 The auction begins. In this pirate world, devil fruit is known as the secret treasure of the sea, and each one is very precious. Although eating it will turn people into landlubbers who can't swim, this has not affected people's pursuit of the fruit at all. Because each fruit may bring super strength and incredible abilities. But because devil fruit is extremely rare, the market price of each one has been hyped up to hundreds of millions of Baileys, and there is still no market for it. So when Char saw the leaflet saying that there was a fruit auction, he was so shocked. "What fruit is it?" Kid and Floyd looked at Char eagerly and asked. It doesn't say on the leaflet, and I think the person who is bidding doesn't know what fruit it is. Unless you have read the Devil Fruit Illustrated book. You can only know it after eating it. Char groaned, but I decided to attend this auction to see if I can buy this fruit. If it is a Logia fruit, wouldn't it be a big profit? Kid and the other two thought it made sense, so they agreed to Char's suggestion. Anyway, they now have hundreds of millions of baileys of property, so they are naturally qualified to bid for this fruit. So several people first found a hotel to settle down, ready to wait for the auction to start in 2 days. For 2 days, Char and his group were completely immersed in the carnival of the town. During the day, they wandered around the town to buy some necessities, and at night they drank and enjoyed life in the tavern. This is the free and easy life of pirates. During this period, Char also kept a note, that is, when he came into contact with other pirate groups, he always asked about the Ralph family intentionally or unintentionally. However, these pirates seemed to be very secretive about the Ralph family and seemed unwilling to mention it more. In this way, Char became more curious about the background of the Ralph family. 2 days passed in a flash, and the number of pirates and merchants gathered on the island exceeded 20,000, and the town of Papalia finally ushered in the triennial grand event, the auction. A mansion somewhere on Papalia Island. Sir Ralph, the venue and all the auction items are in place, and the auction can start at any time. A tall and thin man with black glasses said respectfully. In front of him, a man with green curly hair was half lying on the sofa with his back to him, shaking the red wine glass in his hand. Advertisement. It was J. Ralph, the controller of Papalia. Got it. This time you take everyone with you, deal with it cleanly, and don't leave any traces. The man with glasses was shocked when he heard it and said, Sir, it's enough to let C take 2 people at most. Isn't it a bit too much to send the whole team out? Ralph snorted coldly, interrupted the man with glasses, and said, Are you questioning my judgment? I dare not. The man with glasses showed a look of horror and bent his waist even lower. Humph, attracted by the devil fruit, many famous pirates came this time, and even South Blue came with a few tough guys, whose strength is totally incomparable to those in previous auctions. And there are so many good things in this auction, the transaction amount will definitely exceed any auction event, so it must be done perfectly. All the valuable things, no matter who they fall into, give them to me. As he said this, Ralph stretched out his fingers on his neck and made a singing gesture. The man with glasses looked stern and hesitated. What if these pirates also have strong backers? Will it be troublesome if they die here? Ralph smiled coldly. There are so many pirates on the island, and it's normal for pirates to rob each other. As long as there is no evidence, who dares to blame me? Besides, what if there is a backer? No matter how strong the backer is, can it compare to me? The man with glasses relaxed his expression when he heard this and said respectfully, Of course. When he thought of the man behind Ralph, he was relieved immediately. Yes, in this small East Blue, who can afford to offend such a big shot? The man with glasses listened to Ralph's instructions respectfully and then backed out of the room, apparently to carry out Ralph's vicious plan. Until the door was closed, Ralph picked up the Den Mushi at hand. At this time, Char and his group were mixed in the crowd, pushed forward by the crowded crowd. The tens of thousands of pirates gathered in the town all went out and swarmed to the main auction venue in the center of the town. Advertisement. The venue is a huge oval building. Just from the appearance, you can tell that it can accommodate tens of thousands of people. There are several entrances in the 4 directions of the ground floor of the building for people to enter the auction. I don't know if Ralph is too famous. These swarming, unruly thugs and hooligans are queuing up to enter the venue. This scene made Char and his friends smack their lips. The admission fee is 1,000 baileys per person, and the premium box is 50,000 per person. The guard guarding the entrance of the venue said expressionlessly. So expensive. Char was surprised. You know, there are at least 30 or 20,000 people who came to participate in the auction. Even if the admission fee is 1,000 per person, it is tens of millions of baileys. The auction hasn't even started yet, and they have made such a big profit. This Ralph family is too good at making money. Hurry up or not, there are still many people waiting behind. The guard's tone was full of impatience. Sha Ya pondered for a moment, and in order not to attract attention, he chose to pay 15 gold coins and chose a high-end box. After entering the main venue, a beautiful lady came forward enthusiastically and led the 3 to a separate small room. At the front of the room was a one-way visible glass, through which the main auction venue outside the glass could be seen. After Sha Ya and the other 2 sat on the sofa and waited for about an hour, the tens of thousands of seats in the hall outside the window were finally filled. At this time, the lights in the hall went out and the whole place fell into darkness, but just a moment later, a beam of light shone directly on the stage in the center of the hall. A hot blonde woman appeared on the stage. The woman held a conch in her hand and said in a sweet accent, Welcome to Papalia Island. Now, let's start the triennial carnival. Suddenly, all kinds of strange screams, whistles and shouts rang out from all directions. The whole audience fell into madness. 033 The missing pirate leader. Since the auction lasts for 3 days, it is easy to guess that the devil fruit will be auctioned on the last day. But in order to prevent the auction from being too boring, the store will still bring out some good things as the finale of the first 2 days. Since Char and the other 2 had nothing to do, they stayed in the box to see if there was anything worth buying. The first item to be auctioned today is a saber. Its previous owner was the notorious one-eyed Barrier on the Bounty Grand Line. The bounty amount reached 70 million Baileys, this sword. The host in the middle of the venue had brought the goods up and began to introduce them in a torrent of words. These things are rare for the little pirates outside, but for people like Char, they are no different from street goods. The bidding for this saber soon began in the hall. 30,000 belly, 35,000 belly, 50,000 belly. Soon the saber was bought by a small pirate leader with only a dozen subordinates. The following auction was a bit boring, with all the items being auctioned off being some strange and bizarre gadgets. Although the bidding in the hall was very lively, but no one in the high-end boxes said a word, presumably because they didn't like these things. It wasn't until a worn-out notebook was brought up in the center of the venue that it attracted the attention of Char and the others. Everyone, next we will auction the third to last item of today, a notebook of a shipbuilder. The blonde beauty smiled and looked around, and continued, you must be curious why a notebook can be auctioned as one of the finale items. Because this notebook records the shipbuilding experience of the shipbuilder Ace Bagu in his early years. He is also the president of the Seven Water City Carrera Shipbuilding Company in the Grand Line. Wow! As soon as this name came out, there was a commotion in the venue. The most famous shipbuilder on the Grand Line, he is a person that people look up to. This kind of experience notes of a great man must be a rare good thing. Char. I want this notebook. Advertisement kid was excited, staring at the worn notebook in the middle of the field. Okay, then buy it. Char smiled. He would not be stingy with the things his companions needed, and this would be of great help to their future voyages. Start bidding now. The starting price is 500,000 Baileys. The blonde beauty announced the starting price of this item, which made the little pirates around take a breath. You know, the transaction price of the most expensive opinion item in the first half was only more than 600,000, and it was the result of fierce competition. This little notebook actually has a starting price of 500,000 Baileys. 550,000 Baileys. Before Char spoke, a faint voice came from a box opposite them. Oh, someone is competing with me for it? Char raised his eyebrows and said calmly, 600,000 Baileys. 700,000. 800,000. 1 million. The voice on the other side was obviously angry. However, Char didn't buy it and continued to bid, 1.5 million. As soon as this was said, not only the pirates in the hall were in an uproar, but even the people who had been competing with Char on the other side fell silent. The guest in box 23 bid 1.5 million. Is there a higher price? Then 1.5 million once, twice, 3 times. This notebook belongs to the guest in box 23. Soon the notebook was sent to Char's box. After paying 150 gold coins, the notebook belonged to Char completely. Here you go. Char threw the notebook to Kid next to him. Advertisement, thank you, Char, Kid said excitedly. We are companions, no need to be polite, Char smiled. Kid nodded and began to flip through the books impatiently, with an expression of surprise on his face from time to time. The next 2 items were rare, but they were useless to Char and his friends, so they did not participate in the bidding. In the end, the 2 items were sold for 5 million and 8 million respectively. The first day of the auction ended like this. Late at night, the lobby on the first floor of the hotel was still noisy, and the pirates from various gangs occupied a place to play. Char and his 3 friends occupied a wooden table by the side and sat together drinking. Have you heard that the leader of the Fox Pirates who bought the final item today has disappeared, and his crew has been looking for him since the afternoon? I know this, not only him, but also the leader of the Jackal Pirates who bought the second to last item is missing. The 2 pirates discussed in a low voice. Char at the next table immediately pricked up his ears to listen. It turns out that the 2 leaders of the pirate groups who bought the last 2 auction items today disappeared after the auction ended in the afternoon. Char and the other 2 looked at each other. It can't be such a coincidence. They disappeared just after buying the items. Could it be that someone is cheating on their fellow pirates? Kid whispered. Hey, we are all pirates, and it's normal for them to cheat on their fellow pirates. But what I'm curious about is that the guys who bought these 2 items are not weak among these pirates. Who has the ability to deal with them quietly? Char smiled and showed an unfathomable expression. You mean? Froya and Kid both showed surprised expressions. The only one who has this ability is the Ralph family that they are all afraid of. Char paused, but this is just my guess. Whether it is true or not, we will know tomorrow. 034 The Ralph Family Conspiracy. The second day of the auction. The passion of the previous day seemed to be continuing. There was still a long time before the first item was auctioned, but the huge venue was already full of people. Char and the other 2 naturally came to box 23. After all, 150,000 Baileys were the box fee for 3 days, not a one-time fee. The auction on this day was obviously much more exciting than the previous day, and the overall level of the auction items was greatly improved. Even Char couldn't help but spend millions of Baileys to buy several items. As for the last few auction items, although they were rare, they were of no use to Char, so he didn't participate in the competition. It was just that after these items were auctioned off, Char secretly wrote down the box numbers of these buyers. When the auction was over, Char asked Froya and Kid to go back to the hotel first. He picked a pirate leader who spent a lot of money to buy the Asian auction items and quietly followed him. Maybe the news of the buyer's disappearance the day before had spread among the pirates, so Char was very cautious in following the pirate leader. Not only did he bring several subordinates with him, but he also chose some remote routes to leave the venue as soon as he left. But this trick didn't work for Char at all, so Char just followed from a distance. Sure enough, after the pirate leader left the venue for a long time, 3 figures blocked their way. All 3 of them were wearing strange clothes and black glasses that covered half of their faces. "Who are you?" the pirate leader said in surprise. "You don't need to know." A man with glasses in the middle said coldly and rushed up, and the other 2 moved almost at the same time. Very fast, very strong, this was the first impression in Char's mind in the dark. Judging from the strength shown by these 3 people at this moment, they have at least the strength of a bounty of more than 10 million Baileys. Advertisement after all, the pirate leader was a ruthless character who had been wanted for a long time. Knowing that he could not let it go peacefully, he shouted angrily and took his 2 men to meet him. After a burst of weapons and fists and feet, the 2 men of the pirate leader were killed. The chest of the leader holding the scimitar was also stained with blood. 1 encounter, 2 dead and 1 injured. At this time, the pirate leader was finally afraid, and trembled. You don't kill me. I am willing to hand over the things. I don't want anything. I will leave Papy Island immediately. However, what responded to him was a cold light as fast as lightning. After the cold light passed, a thin red line appeared on his neck, and then blood gushed out. He fell down with a look of unwillingness. After searching the corpse, the 3 weird men with glasses found the things that were taken away by the pirate leader. "You 2 take the things back to the mansion, I'll go meet up with the others." The other 2 nodded and prepared to leave. This was a voice coming from the roof above them. "Hey, it's the Ralph family who is doing this. They sold the things at a high price and killed people to get them back. They are really good at business." The 3 were shocked and looked up at the place where the voice came from. I saw a young man sitting on the edge of the roof, swinging his legs leisurely. It was Char who had been peeking in the dark. "You, die." The man with glasses spit out 2 words coldly, winked at the other 2 and moved together. The 3 moved quickly, and jumped onto the roof in a few jumps between the high and low houses. Then they carefully surrounded Char in the middle. Sha Ya stood up calmly, patted the dust off his buttocks, and said to himself, "Why didn't I think of this kind of business that makes money without doing anything? It's a sure win. Oh, it turns out that I don't have enough economic sense." As soon as he finished speaking, the lazy Sha Ya's eyes suddenly changed. "Run." Advertisement. Whoosh, at the first sound, Sha Ya disappeared instantly. The pupils of the 3 men with glasses shrank together. Before they could react, they heard a muffled sound. One of the men with glasses was hit in the waist by a black shadow, and his whole body bent to a terrifying degree, then suddenly bounced out, crashed through the outer wall of a house not far away and fell into the house. The other 2 were horrified when they saw this, but it was too late to escape. Sha Ya did the same thing, and in a flash, there were 2 more muffled sounds, knocking the 2 men out. Sha Ya looked at the 3 bodies lying side by side in front of him. The corpse had been searched thoroughly by Char, and there was nothing extra except for the clothes. The 3 of them had the same outfit, the same glasses, the same powerful strength, and the same cold and taciturn style. The only difference was that the 3 of them had a different letter printed on their necks, H, I and J. Although he didn't know the meaning of these letters, it made Char believe that they must belong to a disciplined organization, and from the words they just mentioned about sending it back to the adult's mansion, it was not difficult to infer the object of their service. Who in the entire Papy Island is qualified to have a mansion on the island? Of course, only the Ralph family. It seems that things are getting more and more interesting. This Ralph family is actually doing such a sinister thing. But so what? I will still take the devil fruit at the auction tomorrow, if you dare to rob it afterwards, he. Char's mouth had a weird smile. 035 Fight for devil fruit, new week, please collect it. In the Ralph family mansion, in J. Ralph's room. "Sir, the 3 HIJs were killed." The bespectacled man called, bent over and said nervously. "Oh, what happened?" Ralph, who was half lying, stopped shaking the red wine glass in his hand. "When our people arrived, they had been killed. It was clean and neat, and 1 hit was fatal. I'm afraid it was done by a master." "How does it compare to you?" Ralph asked casually, as if the death of the 3 subordinates was nothing to him. I can't compare, but if I attack 3 people, I am confident that I can do it like this. It seems that we really met a master. You will lead the team in person when we act tomorrow. Don't make any more mistakes. It doesn't matter. Whoever buys the devil fruit must spit it out." Ralph said coldly. Then this master. I hesitated. "Don't worry about him. How powerful a master can there be in this remote village of East Blue? It's fine if he took this item. Our main goal is tomorrow. If he doesn't know what's good for him and comes to make trouble, I will make him regret coming to this world." "Understood." A bowed and replied. At the same time, in the hotel where Char and his group stayed, Char had already told Kid and Floyd what happened just now. "I didn't expect the Ralph family to dare to do this. Aren't they afraid that the pirates will unite to deal with them?" Kid was a little puzzled. It's not that simple. There are at least hundreds of pirates on Papy Island during this period. The disappearance of a few people can be explained by gangsters eating gangsters. As long as they are not exposed on the spot, the Ralph family will not be suspected at all. If I hadn't heard their conversation, others would never have led these guys to the Ralph family. Char explained slowly. Advertisement? What should we do? If we take pictures of devil fruit tomorrow, they will definitely be targeted by them. Floyd said a little worriedly. I won't offend anyone if they don't offend me. If they let me go, I won't bother to cause trouble for them. If they really want to provoke me, then it's no wonder that I stripped their family of everything like I did with Lewandowski. Char had an evil smile on his face. On the third day, the main venue of the auction. The enthusiasm of the pirates participating in the auction has reached an unprecedented height. There is still a long time before the auction, and the hall is already noisy. Because today is the last day of the auction, not only can you see all kinds of rare things, you can also see the devil fruit lineup with your own eyes. That is a very precious thing on the Grand Line. If possible, they are willing to buy this devil fruit even if they spend all their property. Because with the fruit, it is equivalent to having strong strength. You have the capital to venture into the Grand Line. This is a pirate in the world. Who doesn't want to make a name for himself in the Grand Line and New World? Who doesn't want to own the lifelong treasure left by Gold D. Roger? So a devil fruit is enough to drive these pirates crazy. Perhaps everyone is looking forward to the appearance of the devil fruit, or wants to save their strength for the devil fruit. Fruit shopping. Although there were many good things in the auction that day, the transaction prices were not too high. This made the Ralph family, who hosted the auction, look unhappy. The person in charge behind the scenes had more than once instigated the shills hidden in the crowd to maliciously drive up the price. This made the transaction price look a little better. After half a day of calm bidding, it was finally time for the final treasure of this auction to appear. In order to whet the appetite of the audience, the host stirred up the atmosphere for a long time before slowly bringing out an exquisite wooden box. Dear guests, I believe you have guessed what is in this box. Yes, this can be said to be the most precious commodity in all previous auctions. Let us witness it together. Advertisement, the blonde beauty said as she slowly opened the wooden box. Tens of thousands of people in the audience held their breath and waited, and the entire venue suddenly became quiet. Until the box was completely opened, everyone could see the appearance of this finale treasure. It was an oval fruit, dark green in color, covered with spiral patterns that looked like arabesque. It was undoubtedly a devil fruit. We don't know what kind of ability fruit this fruit belongs to, but I believe that everyone here will not miss even a 1% chance to become stronger. Okay, now start the bidding for this devil fruit. The reserve price, 100 million Baileys. As soon as these words came out, the whole audience was in an uproar. The reserve price of 100 million Baileys immediately excluded at least 90% of the people in the audience. Although everyone knew that devil fruit was a priceless treasure, it was still beyond many people's expectations that so many people were killed before the auction even started. You should know that the total transaction price of all goods in the past 3 days is probably less than 100 million Baileys. A small pirate group may not be able to get this much even if they plundered the property day and night for 10 years. Just when everyone was in shock, a calm voice sounded in a box. 110 million Baileys. 120 million Baileys. 150 million Baileys. In a short while, many people have joined the auction, but the bids are very small. After all, 100 million Baileys is already an astronomical figure, and every additional Bailey may be the last straw that breaks the camel's back. The price of the fruit is slowly increasing. Char is not in a hurry to bid. He knows that the previous bids are just small fights, and the real decisive moment is still to come. So he decided to wait until the right time to make a move. 036 The dagger appears at the end of the road. New wheat, please collect. Before long, the price of this fruit reached 150 million Baileys in the ups and downs of the price. At this time, there were only 3 people still participating in the bidding. Every time they shouted a new price, they would hesitate for a short time. Obviously, there were not many chips in hand. And tens of thousands of people in the audience held their breath and watched the 3 people's game quietly. It's almost time to make a move. 160 million Baileys. Sha Ya said lightly. Wow. As soon as Sha Ya's price came out, the whole audience suddenly became noisy. Because he raised the price by a full 10 million. Who is that box? He actually raised the price by 10 million at once. I haven't seen him bid before. It seems that he is waiting for the end of the auction. I remember number 23, the guy who bought the shipbuilding experience notes. For a while, the hall was full of speculation about Sha Ya's box. Quiet, please. The guest in box 23 bid 160 million Baileys. Is there anyone who can offer a higher price? The blonde beauty knocked the hammer in her hand in time, and the whole hall returned to order. 165 million Baileys. One of the competitors spoke up, but there seemed to be a hint of viciousness in his tone. 170 million Baileys. Char raised the price by 5 million without thinking, as if the 5 million was nothing in his eyes. He really has the capital. After plundering all of Lewandowski's property, Char already has nearly 300 million Baileys in his hands. It is almost a sure thing to bid for this devil fruit. Sure enough, when this price was announced, the only remaining competitor hesitated. After a while, a cold voice came from the box opposite. 171 million Baileys. This fruit is what our dragon pirates have set their eyes on. I hope you will consider it carefully when bidding. Char couldn't tell that there was a threat in his words. Advertisement at this time, the venue was in uproar again. Because everyone was scared by the name of the Dragon Pirates. The Dragon Pirates. The strongest pirate group in South Blue. It is said that they have been to Grand Line. Really? Why would a big guy who has been to Grand Line come to a small place like East Blue to join in the fun? It's true. Their leader, Earth Dragon D*K, is said to have a bounty of 80 million on Marine. 80 million. My god. I think the guy in box 23 is going to be finished. Who knows? Seeing how rich he is, maybe his background is not weak either. Char listened to the noisy discussions in the venue, but he didn't care. So what if a pirate with a bounty of 80 million is stronger than Marine Rear Admiral? So he didn't take the other party's threat seriously at all and continued to raise the price nonchalantly. 172 million Baileys. The whole audience gasped. Oh my god, he actually ignored the threat of the Dragon Pirates. My brother is awesome, maybe he's a tough guy too. Now we're going to have a good show. Char's actions obviously angered the Dragon Pirates who had been bidding on the other side. A sneer came from the other side. Good, very good, I'll give this fruit to you, but I hope you'll live to enjoy it. Since the relationship has been torn, the other side began to threaten nakedly. Don't worry about that, I will certainly taste the devil fruit. Char replied indifferently, and the other side immediately silenced him. He must have been extremely angry, but he was afraid of the Ralph family who was holding the auction, so he didn't get angry on the spot. At this time, the blonde beauty who presided over the auction, under the protection of several sturdy men, delivered the box containing the devil fruit to the box. Char also took out a large bag of gold coins that he had prepared in advance. After both parties counted the items correctly, they exchanged the money and the fruit. Congratulations to this guest for winning this devil fruit. When you test the fruit's ability, don't forget to tell us. Advertisement, the blonde beauty said to Char in a very charming voice. While approaching Char, she stuffed a note into Char's hand, then left with a wink. Char, who was holding the note, was startled, thinking that the woman was conveying some secret to him. But when he opened the note and saw the content, he was immediately amused. It said, Number 12, Belt Street, West Town, waiting for you. There was also a big lip print at the end. It seems that she wants to make a date with me. Sure enough, Haki, a handsome and rich young man, is the most popular with women. Hee. But Char knew that now was not the time to mess around with men and women. After leaving this venue, he might be targeted by all the elites of the Ralph family. So he put this matter aside for the time being. After whispering a few words with Kid Froya, the three of them left the auction venue. As soon as they left the venue, Char and the other two headed straight for the place they had agreed on in advance. Not long after they walked out, Char felt that there were two groups of people hanging far behind them. It seems that in addition to the people from Ralph's family, the guys from the Dragon Pirates are also unwilling to give up. But it's good that you came, I'll deal with them all at once. Char's smile was murderous, a remote corner of Papalia town. In front of an abandoned clock tower, there was a large open space, and Char and the other two were standing in the middle of the open space. We've followed far enough, it's almost time to get out. Char turned around and said to the ruins behind. I didn't expect that the one who took the fruit was just a little kid. So, is this the place you chose for your own burial? Not bad, it's quite quiet. A sturdy man with a dragon head tattooed on his left cheek walked out of the ruins with 4 or 5 big men. This man should be the leader of the Dragon Pirates, D*K, who was bidding against Char for the fruit. Char completely ignored D*K and said in another direction. Come out, Ralph's lackeys, I can smell the stench on you. As soon as the voice fell, a group of cold-faced men in uniform walked out from the direction Char was facing. There were 7 of them, 037 counterattack. The leader of the 7 was the man called D*K. The dragon was stunned when he saw the appearance of several people. Obviously he didn't know the existence of the other party. But he immediately understood the intention of these people, and couldn't help but laugh. Kid, it seems that there are many people who want you dead. After that, he turned to A and his group and said, Hey, I don't care what grudges you have with this kid, but he is the target of my dragon pirates. If you know what's good for you, get out of here quickly, otherwise don't blame me for not reminding you. A flashed a cold light in the corner of his eyes and said coldly, You will die too. As soon as the voice fell, A and the 2 cold-faced men behind him ran towards D*K the dragon like lightning. The other 4 rushed towards Char and others. Aya, kid, you deal with the 2 on the flanks, and leave the middle to me. Char whispered, and took the 2 to meet them, and for a while the 3 gangs were in a melee. As soon as Char fought with the other party, he felt that the 2 cold-faced men in front of him were obviously stronger than the 3 people he had dealt with yesterday. At least the bounty was over 40 million or 50 million. How could there be so many powerful guys hidden on Papalia Island, and they looked like they were just other people's men? Such a thought flashed through Char's mind. He quickly glanced at Froya and the other 2 with the corner of his eye. Fortunately, the other 2 people fighting with them were relatively weaker, and Kid's strength was enough to deal with them. Char didn't want to waste time, and he attacked the 2 cold-faced men fiercely with Armament Haki. The characters with a bounty of 40 million or 50 million Baileys are indeed terrifying enough in East Blue, but in Char's eyes, they are no different from ordinary pirates. This is absolute strength suppression. Bang, bang, Char's heavy blow hit the chests of the two cold-faced men hard, and their chests collapsed immediately. The two men drew an arc in the air like a kite with a broken string and fell to the ground, without any movement. At this time, the two enemies that Kid Aya was facing were also knocked down. All four enemies were killed. Advertisement at this time, in another battle group, the number of people on the side of the evil dragon D*K had been reduced from 6 to 3, while his side was unharmed. D*K was always a villain with a bounty of 80 million. He withstood the attacks of A and another man by himself, but it seemed more difficult. However, the two groups who were fighting were surprised when they noticed that Char had ended the battle. The two groups stopped immediately, retreated far away from each other, and then looked at Char's group cautiously. "So it was you who did it?" A glanced at the two people whose chests were broken by Char and said, and there was an emotional fluctuation in his cold tone for the first time. It was anger. "Oh, you mean those 3 guys who were sneaking around to kill people and steal treasures? They're all weak chickens. They will die after being hit once. There's no point at all." Char spread his hands and made a helpless expression. "You." A was obviously angered by Char, and left D*K's group and rushed straight to Char. Char raised his lips and said, "Keep your lives for now. I'll come back to ask you questions after I kill the guy over there." Conqueror's Haki. The invisible wave instantly covered the 4 people including A, causing their pupils to lose focus. Bang, bang, bang. Char kicked out 4 times in a row, each of which hit one person in the chest. Except for the kick that hit A, which was not fatal, the other kicks were used with full force, and they turned into corpses in an instant. Char kept moving, and suddenly stepped out a few times, leaving only a shadow of his body and disappearing on the spot. D*K and the other 2 who saw this scene from a distance had their eyes wide open and showed a look of horror on their faces. He knew that he had run into a tough guy. Advertisement. The opponent that his side had to use all their strength to barely deal with was solved by this kid in one encounter. And the momentum that made the opponent lose consciousness instantly just now was very similar to a legend he heard on the Grand Line. An ability that only 1 in a million people possess, Conqueror's Haki. Run. This was the only thought in his mind. However, just as this thought came up, the disappeared Char had reappeared in front of him. Wait, before he could finish his words, a heavy fist had hit his lower abdomen. D*K only felt that his internal organs were smashed to pieces in an instant, and then he lost consciousness forever. As for the 2 minions around D*K, they were naturally kicked one by Char, and they were solved neatly. It was not until then that he fell from the air to the ground and regained consciousness, but as soon as he sat up, he covered his chest and spit out a mouthful of blood. When he saw the situation in front of him clearly, the poker face that never had any expression was full of horror. You actually know how to use Haki, and it's Conqueror's," he said tremblingly. "Huh? I didn't expect you to know all this. It seems that your background is not simple." Char was slightly startled. He didn't expect to be recognized as Haki. "Tell me, who do you work for? Don't tell me about the Ralph family. I don't believe that this small East Blue family can have such a force as yours." A was shocked when he heard this, but he quickly put away his shock and remained silent. "It seems that you don't want to talk?" Char raised his eyebrows. I remained silent with a blank expression. "Very good, in that case, there is no need to keep you." Char stepped heavily on his chest, and spit out a large mouthful of blood with a painful expression, and then fell straight down. After killing A, Char turned over the bodies of their group. Except for their clothes and the letters on their necks, they had nothing extra. A, B, C, H, I, J. Isn't this the alphabet? It seems that the closer the letters are, the stronger the strength is. Char compared these cold-faced men he killed and came to this conclusion. What should we do now? They will never say who they work for. Kid frowned. Hey, what else can we do? We'll find out if we go to Ralph's house. Char smiled. 038 The weird Ralph family is the controller of Papy Island. The Ralph family is naturally well known to everyone. It didn't take much effort for Char and his group to find the settlement of the Ralph family. It was a manor built in a valley far away from the market town. From a distance, the entire Ralph family manor seemed to be shrouded in a dark cloud and looked very dark. This formed a strong contrast with the bright places around it, which looked very strange and gloomy. When Char and his group approached the manor within a few hundred meters, thick fog began to fill the air around them, and they couldn't see anything at all 10 meters away. Not only that, as the few people went deeper, the surrounding environment began to become as if it was shrouded in the night, very dark. This place is wrong. It's obviously broad daylight, but it feels like night, so gloomy. Kid took a breath and looked around carefully. Froya was even more nervous, holding his hands and getting between Kid and Char. It's a bit strange indeed. Let's get closer and pay attention to the surroundings. Char frowned and reminded. The 3 of them walked along the road for a long time and finally came to a closed iron gate. The words, Ralph, were hung on the top of the iron gate, and on both sides were iron fences that were endless and gradually disappeared in the fog. Just when several people were thinking about whether to enter from the front. With a creak, the iron gate opened by itself, Kid and Froya immediately looked at Char, as if asking for his opinion. Since the door opened by itself, it means that the people inside know we are here, so there is no need to hide and dodge. Just go in. I want to see what tricks the Ralph family can come up with. After saying that, Char walked in the lead of Kid and the others and stepped into the gate first. After entering the gate, the fog seemed to become thicker. Except for the land behind the door that leads straight to the front palace, only some dark things can be vaguely seen on the grass on both sides, like pieces of stones scattered randomly on the open space. What are those black things? They are so scary. Froya pulled Shaw's clothes with one hand and pointed at the black things on both sides of the road with the other hand. I don't know. Be careful. Shaw suddenly felt a sense of alarm and pushed Freya away. I saw a cold light flashing quickly between the two of them, leaving a very deep groove on the ground. Advertisement at this time, the sound of clacking wooden clogs came from the front of the three people. Not long after, a figure appeared in front. Wano Kuni warrior. How is it possible? Shaw screamed in surprise after seeing the outfit of the person coming. The man in front of him was wearing a simple kimono with a samurai sword on his waist. At this time, he was holding the scabbard in one hand and the handle in the other hand, maintaining a posture of drawing the sword. If this outfit is not a Wano Kuni warrior, what is it? But what surprised Char even more was that there was no sign of life on the face of this Wano Kuni warrior, just like a zombie. Wait, a zombie? Could it be? Char seemed to know something. Before Char could think about it, another cold light exploded from the warrior's hand and rushed straight towards Char. But Char had been prepared, and with the help of observation Haki, he easily dodged the knife light. This guy is very strong, I will deal with him, Char quickly said to Kid and the others, and rushed up. He opened fire at full power as soon as he came up, using the third-level Armament Haki ultimate. Armament Haki, machine gun, whip kick, heavy attack. A series of clanging sounds of fighting rang out, and Char couldn't take down the warrior for a while. Just when Char and the Wano Kuni warrior were fighting fiercely, Remember and Freya heard a rustling sound around them. One by one, human figures crawled out from under those black things, and there were as many as 100 of them. After these figures crawled out from the ground, they made a ho 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 sound and surrounded Char and the other two. Damn, there is such a thing here. Kid cursed and took a fighting posture. Freya immediately drew out the short sword and stood back to back with Kid. With the first hoarse roar, all the figures around surrounded them. Advertisement Kid and Freya quickly fought with the group of figures. And Char seemed to be in trouble. This Wano Kuni warrior's physical skills and swordsmanship are quite superb, especially the sword light that can cut through the air. The power is almost as powerful as the Tempest Kick in the 6 styles. Even if Char had the hardened body of armament color to protect his body, he didn't dare to take it head on. So for a while, he couldn't find a good way to get close to this warrior. At this time, not far from where Char and the others were fighting, a green-haired man half lying on the sofa saw the whole scene. I didn't expect such a difficult character to come this time. I'm afraid A and the others have all been killed. Humph. But you dare to break into the door, that's courting death. When the time comes, not only will you spit out the fruit, but you will also be skinned and pulled out. The green-haired man said coldly, and he took a big sip of red wine. This man is J. Ralph. Finally, with the help of observation Haki, Char finally figured out the Wano Kuni warrior's attack method. At the moment when a knife light was launched from the warrior's hand. Run! Char burst out with all his strength, and his speed instantly reached its peak. In just a flash, Char appeared diagonally above the warrior. Armament Haki, battle axe split. Boom! Char's full-strength kick hit the warrior's waist. With a click, the warrior's body was broken in the middle. Not only was Char surprised, but even Ralph, who had been watching from the dark, had a fierce expression on his face. Bang! The red wine glass in his hand fell to the ground and broke into pieces. The blood-red wine spilled all over the floor. 039 Ralph's backer. How is it possible? How is it possible? Even the powerful zombie generals are no match for them. J. Ralph's face was full of disbelief, and he was stunned on the spot. But after a moment, he immediately recovered from the horror, hurriedly took out the Den Mushi and dialed the number. At this time, Char was half squatting on the ground, checking the body of the Wano Kuni warrior who was killed by him. In order to confirm his guess, Char directly opened the collar of the warrior. Sure enough, on the right base of the warrior's neck, there was a number tattooed. 868. Sure enough, I didn't expect the zombie army to appear here. It seems that Moria is behind the Ralph family. The current Shichibukai, Gecko Moria. This crazy guy with the ability of the Shadow Fruit, with the help of his subordinate Hogback, collected corpses everywhere for transformation, and then used the fruit ability to steal other people's shadows and injected them into the corpses to make them obey his orders. He even tried to create a zombie army to dominate the world. However, after the Battle of Marineford, he was wiped out by the world government. Doflamingo claimed that he had been killed, but in fact he mysteriously disappeared. But why would he support such a small family in such a small place? Is there something he needs here? Char couldn't figure it out for a while, so he could only put aside this doubt temporarily and go to support Freya and Kid first. At this time, I remember that the two were fighting fiercely with a group of zombies, and nearly half of the zombies had been killed by them. After Char joined the battle, their killing speed suddenly accelerated, and they quickly eliminated all the zombie soldiers. Advertisement. Then they went straight to the castle. Boom. There was a sound. The castle gate was kicked far away by Char, and the three of them rushed into the castle decisively. Although this mansion is very large, Char and his team went in and searched for a long time and couldn't see a single living person. The whole castle was filled with a gloomy atmosphere. Finally, in a large room on the third floor, he found the culprit J. Ralph. Haha, I didn't expect that East Blue would have such a powerful guy like you. It's really unexpected. Ralph smiled calmly at Char and the other two. However, he was just trying to be strong and calm, because the sweat on his forehead had betrayed him. Hey, I didn't expect that the Shichibukai would command their minions to do such murder and robbery in East Blue. Char sneered. Ralph was shocked when he heard this, and suddenly stood up from the sofa and said, You actually knew it. Do you think I'm the kind of idiot you killed? How could a small East Blue family have the courage to do such a thing if there is no support behind it? Your purpose here is nothing more than collecting money and corpses for Moria to support his zombie army plan. Char looked like he had everything under control. Who are you? Ralph was so shocked that he couldn't speak clearly. His face was constantly changing with shock, fear, and other expressions, and finally returned to a calm expression. Since you already know who I work for, I'll tell you clearly. I've just reported what you did to Lord Moria. Lord Moria still admires your strength. If you join us, Lord Moria can forgive you for what you did. When Char heard this, he raised his eyebrows and said, What if you don't join? Don't join? The power and status of Shichibukai are far beyond your imagination, and no one dares to provoke them on the Grand Line. The consequences of disobeying Lord Moria, At this point, Ralph had a smug smile on his face. In his impression, as long as the name of Shichibukai comes out, there is no one who dares to obey. He is even thinking about how powerful his family will be after these guys join him. Oh, I hate anyone threatening me the most. Shichibukai is nothing. Let him die. Char sneered. You're crazy. The smugness on Ralph's face instantly faded, replaced by an expression of disbelief. Stop talking nonsense and hand over the treasures you have looted, otherwise don't blame me for not reminding you. Char said coldly with a threatening tone. Ralph broke out in a cold sweat. Advertisement. He knew he had fallen into a trap. He actually encountered such a few ruthless characters who didn't care about their lives, and even the famous head of Shichibukai was not afraid. I don't have any treasures. All the treasures and corpses obtained from auctions and murders were transported away as soon as possible. Ralph said in a trembling voice. I'm just a puppet here. There's no point in killing me. Let me go. Char frowned deeply when he heard this. What a big loss. He thought that he could not only take back the more than 100 million Baileys he had taken the fruit of by killing, but also make a lot of money. Unexpectedly, not only did he not get a penny, but even his capital was transferred. That's a full 170 million Baileys. Char felt that his nose was about to be crooked with anger. How could he not be angry when he lost more than half of the wealth he had collected with great difficulty? However, Freya, who was even more angry than Char, rushed forward with fire in her eyes and beat Ralph up. My prisoner card, my bag, my new clothes. Give it back to me. Char and Kid were dumbfounded, watching the furious Freya beat Ralph to death. 040 Log Town. After beating and kicking Ralph for a long time, Freya finally stopped. What are you doing? Why are you looking at me with such a strange look? Doesn't this guy deserve to die? Freya asked in a bad tone, still angry. Char and Kid hurriedly shook their heads like rattles. Nothing. Damn it. This guy deserves to die. Beating him to death like this is totally a bargain for him. He should be chopped up and fed to the Sea Kings. Char said indignantly. As he said that, he also glanced at Ralph, whose face was deformed by the beating, and shuddered. Women really can't be messed with, especially Freya. Only then did Kid sigh and say, not only did I not get anything back this time, but I offended Shichibukai. Is Shichibukai so great? Dare to mess with me, chop them all up and feed them to the fish. Freya glared at Kid and said viciously, frightening Kid to shrink his neck and shut up. Aya is right. I won't offend anyone unless they offend me. Since they have set their sights on our bloody Nightshade pirates, even if they are Shichibukai, we will kill them one by one when we reach the Grand Line. Char echoed. In fact, what he said was not wrong, although it might be a bit difficult for them to fight Moria with their current strength. But they are still far away from the Grand Line Devil's Triangle. According to Char's strength improvement speed, it is still unknown who will beat whom. What's more, Moria still has a big problem to solve. According to Char's memory, it will take a long time for the Straw Hat crew to reach the Devil's Triangle and fight Moria's zombie army, which will seriously injure him. No, I must speed up and catch up, otherwise I won't get any benefits, Char thought secretly. Now that Ralph has been eliminated and the Devil Fruit has been obtained, Char and his party should leave Papalia. However, Char and his gang, who had lost a large sum of money, were unwilling to give up. They searched Ralph's mansion from top to bottom, hoping to recover some of their losses. Advertisement. But to their disappointment, Ralph, who looked glamorous on the surface, was actually a complete pauper. The money found in his mansion was only a few million, which was a far cry from 170 million. Floyd, who was unwilling to give up, even took Char and his gang to raid the auction house. Damn, Ralph is just a puppet, there is no money at all, I am so angry. Floyd was furious and ordered Char and Kid to burn down the Ralph family's mansion and auction house. Grand Line, a thriller bark shrouded in fog. Hee hee hee. Very good, these bugs dared to ignore me and destroy my industry. Although Moria had a smile on his face, he gave people an extremely cold feeling. Spread the word among the pirates. Whoever captures these guys will get 100 million berries each. Remember, as long as they are alive, I will let them see their shadows being taken away with their own eyes, and then I will transform them into the most loyal dogs. Let them all kneel down in front of me and call me master. Moria's expression was so gloomy that it was about to drip with water. At this time, Char and the other two had no idea that in addition to the 100 million bounty on Char's head by Marine, each of them had a worth of hundreds of millions in the pirate circle. But even if they knew, they would not care, because in Char's view, the Shichibukai 8 warlords of the sea were just stepping stones on his way to the new world, and he would definitely knock them all down one by one. Char sat cross-legged at the bow, looking at the sea level in the distance, as if expecting something to appear. They had been away from Papy Island for 3 days. According to the expected route, they should be only 1 or 2 days away from Logue Town. Logue Town, the place where the legendary pirate king Gold D. Roger was born and executed. Advertisement. Although Char did not witness these legends in person, it did not affect his expectations for this place at all. It is not that he admires these legends, but this will be the last stop for him to set foot on the Grand Line, and for him, it is also the place where his legend will begin in the future. After all, Char is determined to defeat all the masters of the Grand Line, find Raftel, and become the king of pirates. So even though he knew the approximate distance, Char would still ask from time to time. Aya, how far are we from Logue Town? You have asked me this question 800 times. There are still 2 days. There are still 2 days. There are still 2 days. Floyd shouted impatiently. She has been driven crazy by Char's question these days. You learn to say important things 3 times so quickly. After getting the answer, Char couldn't help but tease, in return for a big eye roll from Floyd. 2 days later. Char, come out and see, we're at Logue Town. Kid stood on the deck and shouted as he looked into the distance. All he heard was a chaotic sound of footsteps. Char, disheveled and with hair as messy as weeds, ran out of the cabin with excitement. He jumped onto the side of the ship and looked into the distance. Ha ha ha. We're really at Logue Town, Aya, full power. Get to the shore in the shortest possible time. Char commanded excitedly, then ran back to the cabin with a bang. Freya rolled her eyes, but still controlled the rudder, allowing the Yasha to head straight for the dock of Logue Town. 041 Celestial Dragons arrive. Logue Town is the birthplace of the previous pirate king, Gold D. Roger, and it is also the place where he was executed after returning from the Grand Line. Therefore, Logue Town is also called the Town of Beginning and End. Because it is located near the entrance of the East Blue Grand Line, it has an excellent geographical location. Almost all pirates will use this place as the last stop before entering the Grand Line from the East Blue. Therefore, the flow of people in this town is very large. Coupled with the legendary story of the birth and death place of the first generation of Pirate King, over time, Logue Town has become a very prosperous town. At this time, Char and his party were driving the Yasha slowly approaching Logue Town. Kid, climb up and take down the pirate flag. Char suddenly shouted to Kid, who was preparing to dock. Kid listened and didn't ask the reason. He climbed up the main mast in a few seconds and took down the pirate flag with the devil's head printed on it. The purpose of doing this is very simple. Although pirates often settle in Logue Town, it does not mean that pirates have the final say here. On the contrary, this is a place that Marine attaches great importance to. This can be seen from the highest officer stationed in Logue Town, Smoker. However, due to the pursuit of Straw Hat Crew, Smoker has left Logue Town and chased to the Grand Line. After the Alabasta incident, he was promoted to the rank of Rear Admiral. Although it is unknown who the Marine officer stationed in Logue Town is and what his rank is, but in order not to cause unnecessary trouble, Char chose to enter the town in a low profile. After all, they were just passing by here to buy some necessary supplies. If they attracted the attention of the Marine, and then there was a mess, it would definitely delay Char's voyage. This is not what Char wants to see, because his current goal is to rush to Sabodi Archipelago as soon as possible. In this way, no one noticed that there was a white ship without markings and flags in the busy Logue Town port. Okay, now that we have docked, let's divide the work next. Advertisement. Floya sat on the railing on the second floor of the deck with her legs crossed and gave orders. Char, go ask around and see if there's any news worth noting at sea recently. By the way, buy some food while you're at it, but remember not to buy dry bread, it's so unpalatable. Kid, go to town and buy some wood tools and other things to ensure that our ship can be repaired in time when it is damaged. This trip to Grand Line. Freya arranged a lot of work for the two. What are you doing? Char and the others asked together. Me? Of course I'm going shopping. There are so many fashion brands in Logue Town. If I don't buy a lot, I don't know when I'll be able to go next time. Char and the others were speechless, but due to Freya's fierceness, they didn't dare to complain. So the three of them split up and went about their own business. Just as Char's ship docked, a warship with the marine logo printed on its sails was slowly sailing on the sea not far from Logue Town. The size of this warship is at least 7 or 8 times that of the Yasha, and the dark blue hull is covered with shooting holes that can be opened at any time. Coupled with the 3 sturdy cannons at the bow, the warship looks full of deterrence.
Report to Benny Rear Admiral. An island has appeared ahead. Judging from the map, it should be Logue Town. The sentry who had been observing the situation on the sea surface gave a reminder. Logue Town. Pass the order down, bypass this island and continue to sail east. The man said with a hint of irritation. The man called Benny was wearing a marine uniform and a cloak with the word justice printed on it. Advertisement. He was unusually tall, with a neatly combed blonde hair behind his head and a long scar on his cheek, which made his originally handsome face look a little hideous. Benny Rear Admiral, I am very interested in this island, drive the ship over. Just as the sentry received the order and was about to execute it, a casual voice came from behind, as if he was instructing a subordinate. Benny paused after hearing the words and turned around quickly. As you order, St. Chalmers. Benny bowed his head slightly and said respectfully. But in the eyes that outsiders could not see, there was a flash of disgust. A fat man was seen walking slowly in front of him. The man was wearing a white robe that covered the ground. The edge of the robe was inlaid with gorgeous golden patterns. In addition, he wore various medals on his left chest, which made his clothes look very luxurious. Of course, the most eye-catching thing was the transparent bubble hood on his scallion-shaped head, which seemed to create a purer air for him. This man was a celestial dragon. Celestial dragons are world nobles living in the holy land of Mariajoy. Legend has it that they are descendants of the 20 kings who established the world government 800 years ago, so they always regard themselves as descendants of the creator. And use this as capital to do all kinds of arrogant and domineering things. This group of self-proclaimed great things regard other races as lowly people and capture them as slaves for fun at will. They are called the world's biggest garbage by the world, which shows how much they are hated and disgusted. But everyone is just angry but dare not speak out, because this group of people who are worse than scum hold the greatest power in the world. Not only can they do whatever they want, but they are also protected by the government. Once they are offended, the naval headquarters must send the maximum military force to protect them. 042 Crisis. This bunch of scum, they only know how to act according to their own mood and preferences all day long. Even this time when they came to East Blue, it was because St. Chamos wanted to leave Mariajoy and have some fun. So Marine mobilized the warships equipped with seastone on the bottom of the ship, and assigned Benny Rear Admiral to escort them all the way, and then they crossed the calm belt to travel to East Blue. Spending a lot of manpower and material resources, just to satisfy his temporary interest. So Benny Rear Admiral acted very respectful, but in fact he hated St. Chamos very much in his heart. In his eyes, these celestial dragons are garbage that wastes food, even worse than garbage. But because of the identity of Marine Rear Admiral, he had to obey St. Chamos. Because of this, he showed a look of disgust. Especially when he saw what St. Chamos was holding in his hand, the disgust in his eyes was even worse. The celestial dragon's fat man was holding 2 thick iron chains in his hands, and the other end of the iron chains was connected to 2 steel collars, which were now on the necks of 2 human women who were kneeling and crawling on the ground. The clothes of the 2 women who were trapped were torn and tattered, and their skin was exposed in many places. They had no expression on their faces and looked numb. They were probably tortured and abused. More importantly, these 2 women were civilians who were plundered from the islands along the way at the request of St. Chalmers and Benny Rear Admiral himself. When he thought of this, Benny secretly clenched his fists. It just so happens that I am tired of playing with these 2 dogs. They are lifeless all day long and boring. Throw them into the sea to feed the fish. St. Chalmers kicked one of the women twice and said dissatisfiedly. After that, he threw the iron chain to the ground and walked to Benny's side. Yes. Yes. The marine soldiers hurriedly picked up the ground and dragged the 2 slaves away without wasting a second. The other soldiers stood around trembling, not daring to make a sound, as if they were afraid that this moody, distorted, trash boss would also be thrown into the sea to feed the sea kings. Logue Town. Then let's go here to have some fun. Chalmers Saint stood beside Ben and looked at Logue Town and said. The town looks quite prosperous, so why not catch more slaves to hold a beast fighting competition? I haven't played like this for a long time, and I suddenly feel a little itchy. Advertisement. The marine soldiers around couldn't help but feel cold on their backs when they heard this. Treating humans as beasts and watching them fight for fun is simply a crazy act. Even Benny Rear Admiral's pupils shrank, and his clenched fist suddenly made a crackling sound. Obviously, he was already angry in his heart. But he only dared to hide this anger in his heart and dared not disobey. Because the other party was celestial dragons, damn celestial dragons that even marine admirals could call to order. Inside Logue Town, Kid, who had parted ways with Char, wandered the streets alone. Logue Town is indeed a big town, with all the materials and tools. Kid, who had just come out of a shop selling shipbuilding materials, said to himself with some joy. After just a short while of shopping, he had already bought most of the materials he wanted to purchase, and he only needed to wait for the shop owner to prepare the materials and send them to the dock. It's still early for the meeting time with Char, so hurry up and buy everything, and you can go around in the remaining time. Huh, what happened? Kid, who was thinking about where to hang out after finishing his business, suddenly heard a commotion at the corner of the street. A large number of passers-by and vendors were running from that direction in a panic. The shop owners along the way began to close their doors when they saw this. Kid walked towards the direction of the commotion, and stopped a running passerby along the way to ask what was going on. Marine is arresting people. They have already fought with several gangs of thieves. The passerby left this sentence in panic and ran away. Marine arrests people. Arrest pirates. Kid frowned and thought for a moment, then turned around and left. Although he was the only one in the pirate group who was not wanted by a bounty, his fishman hybrid appearance was quite eye-catching, and with the hideous tattoo on his forehead, it was hard not to associate him with a pirate. So he thought it would be better to avoid this trouble. But just as he was about to leave, a group of Marines appeared at the other end of the street, following the two men and walking towards Kid. Advertisement. When Kid saw the two leading men, his face suddenly changed. One of them was a tall scarred Marine Rear Admiral Benny. And the other one was the celestial dragons named Chamos. Celestial dragons. Kid felt that his eyes were about to spit out flames of hatred, and his whole body began to tremble. It was these damned rubbish that marked him and his parents with a lifelong mark of shame and tortured them. Even if he escaped from Mariajoy, his parents died in the cold eyes and exclusion of the world. He had no doubt that he would rush up and kill the damned celestial dragons in the next second. But he still suppressed the burning anger in his body. Because he knew that the marine generals around celestial dragons were not simple, at least general officers, and he could not be their opponents. Another point is that he is no longer alone now. He has two companions, Char and Freya, and he can't act rashly. Even if there is a 1 in 10,000 chance that he succeeds in assassination, he will be hunted down by the admiral. He doesn't want to drag Char and the others into the fire pit. So he chose to endure. Damn celestial dragons, you wait, when I become stronger, I will definitely kill Mariajoy and exterminate you. Kid clenched his fists and turned to walk to the corner in the opposite direction. But what he didn't expect was that the celestial dragons in the distance had already stared at him in the crowd. Interesting, there is a fishman here. Catch him for me. Saint Chamos pointed at Kid in the crowd. After receiving a nod of approval from Benny's rear admiral, a group of marine soldiers immediately chased after him. 043 Kid was captured. Kid saw a marine soldier chasing him from the corner of his eye, and his heart skipped a beat, and his steps could not help but speed up. Stop! The fishman in front. Or I'll shoot. The marine soldier chasing behind saw Kid was about to run, and hurriedly shouted. How could Kid dare to stop? He could guess with his toes what would happen if he was caught by celestial dragons. Since he was already being targeted, he should run. Kid no longer tried to hide, and ran towards the other side of the street at the fastest speed. Huh, I didn't expect this fishman to be so powerful. I must catch him for a fight. Ha ha ha. Benny, go catch him yourself. Chalmers Saint laughed. In his words, he didn't treat Kid as a person at all, but as a toy he wanted. Not only that, even when he asked Benny Rear Admiral to catch Kid, he called him by name, as if he was instructing a servant, without any respect. Benny Rear Admiral frowned secretly, but he didn't dare to disobey, so he could only nod and answer, I will follow your orders, St. Chalmers. As soon as the voice fell, with a whoosh, Benny disappeared from the spot. An invisible line appeared on the street in an instant, and the dust along the line was blown to both sides by the strong wind brought by Benny's rapid movement. So fast, Kid, who had been secretly observing the situation behind with his peripheral vision, was shocked. This speed is completely comparable to that of Char. Oh no, I can't run away now. Kid had such a thought in his mind. Sure enough, although Kid was also running at full speed, after just 2 breaths, a tall blonde man appeared in front of him. It was Benny Rear Admiral who caught up. Pirate. Just right. Benny saw the pirate mark on Kid's forehead and was relieved. Although he was the person that celestial dragons wanted to capture, at least he was not a civilian. After saying that, Benny didn't even bother to draw his knife, and attacked with his bare hands. Although Kid had been training with Char during this period, he had made amazing progress. But facing the Rear Admiral, especially the Naval Headquarters Rear Admiral, he was still not good enough. He only saw a fist shadow, so he subconsciously raised his arm to block, and did not forget to use the toughening ability. Then a huge force came from his arm, blasting him up, and his hands were in pain as if they were about to break. Advertisement. Huh, fruit ability user, can you block my punch? Benny was also slightly stunned, but he sneered and rushed forward again. This time Kid couldn't resist anymore. He didn't even see the opponent's shadow, and was hit by a few bangs and fell heavily to the ground. He gritted his teeth and tried to get up in pain, but a foot suddenly stepped on his back, making him lie on the ground again. Then, he was tied up by a group of Marines who surrounded him and locked a strange shackle on his hands. As soon as he locked it, he felt as if all his strength was drained away, and his whole body was limp and powerless. In addition, Kid gradually lost consciousness after being beaten up. If Char was here, he would definitely recognize the shackles on his hands. Seastone. At the same time when Kid was caught. Char, the leader of the Bloody Yasha pirates, was eating and forgetting everything else at the other end of the town. He completely forgot about buying ingredients as Freya had told him to, and kept shuttling between various restaurants. This is delicious. Delicious. Ah, this is not bad either. Boss, give me another one. He stuffed the food on the table into his mouth like he had been hungry for hundreds of years, and the guests at other tables were collectively stunned. I heard that something happened in the south of the town. What happened? It seems that a large warship has arrived, and many marine soldiers have come down. They must be big shots. Even Captain Bass, who is stationed in our town, went to greet them in person. So powerful, what are they doing here? I don't know. It is said that they started arresting people everywhere as soon as they entered the town, causing chaos on the streets over there. I heard that many pirates have been caught. The two guests who just walked in from the gate chatted and were heard by Char. He immediately had a bad premonition in his heart. Advertisement. The streets in the south of the town. Isn't that where Kid goes? Is there a big marine driving a warship to arrest people? No, I have to go and take a look. If Kid runs into a senior marine general, it will be troublesome. Char hurriedly stopped eating and drinking, threw down a gold coin and left the visit. The boss who picked up the gold coin was so happy that he couldn't stop smiling. Char went to the dock first. Because before they separated, they agreed that if there was any change in the town, they would go back to the ship to gather first. But when he returned to the Yasha, there was no one except him. Aya may not have heard about this matter because she didn't come back, but Kid is in the south of the city. Did he really have an accident? Char thought about it quickly in his mind, and finally he decided to go to the south of the city to find Kid. So he left a note on the ship, telling Freya to wait for them on the ship after returning, because if Kid had an accident, Freya would not be able to help much. After leaving the message, Char went to the south of the city without stopping. When he rushed to the streets in the south of the city, the streets here were already in a mess. Most of the shops on both sides had closed their doors, and only a few people were running on the street. Char pulled 7 or 8 passers-by to ask, and they all said that they had not seen anyone who looked like Kid. Big brother, are you looking for that fishman? The second floor of the small house next to Char suddenly opened the window, and a little girl's head popped out and whispered. Yeah, a tall fishman brother, did you see him? Char asked with a smile on his face. He was captured by a guy wearing a cloak. They are so fierce. They capture people everywhere. As soon as the little girl finished this sentence, she was hurriedly pulled in by a woman, and then the window was slammed shut. Captured. A person wearing a cloak. Char suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart. 044 Eve of the storm. Something big happened in Logue Town. Although there are often some big pirates with valuable heads staying in the town, the Marines don't control them so strictly. As long as they don't rob and kill people in the town, there won't be any problems. But this time, I don't know what happened to the Marines. All the troops distributed in the entire Logue Town were dispatched, and the highest commander Captain Bass personally led the way to capture pirates all over the town, especially those with high bounties. For a time, the huge Logue Town was in chaos. However, the intelligence gathering ability of the people is no joke. In just half a day, the real reason was figured out. It turned out that it was a weirdo with a glass cover on his head, who asked the Marines to capture slaves for him. As long as they were not weak, they were all captured. Not only pirates, but also civilians and bounty hunters were not spared. What's more infuriating is that this weirdo with a glass cover captured these people just to make them fight each other for fun. Public indignation was brewing all of a sudden, but because the arrest was made through Marine, no one dared to stand up and fight. However, titles such as Executioner, Most Vicious Demon, Scum, and so on have been spread secretly, and everyone hates the weird man in strange clothes to the core. As for why they didn't know that it was celestial dragons. You should know that celestial dragons only live in the holy land of Mariajoy. Even if you want to see one, you have to enter the Grand Line and take half of the voyage to see it in Sabayati Archipelago. If it weren't for St. Chamos's sudden impulse to travel around the world, these East Blue civilians might never know the existence of such people in their lives. Of course, Char and Freya also got the news. At this time, the two were discussing a solution on the Yasha. Although Kid has been captured, his life should not be in danger for a while. Didn't the pervert say that he wanted to lock them up and kill them? Now the important thing is to figure out where to take them to fight, and then find a way to save him. Freya didn't seem panicked, but calmly analyzed the current situation. I didn't expect to meet scum like celestial dragons here. Char was not as calm as Freya, and he punched the table hard in anger. Advertisement. Don't worry, let's think about how to save him. Freya comforted him. I'm fine. I've already found out that the damn celestial dragons will hold a death contest in the coliseum of Logue Town tomorrow, letting these captured guys fight each other, and the last one left will be released. Char said with a gloomy face. Freya stopped and his expression changed. He gritted his teeth and said, what a crazy guy. He deliberately gave these people a glimmer of hope and let them fight with all their strength. I'm afraid the more fiercely these people fight, the more excited he is. What a pervert. Hey, not only that, he also forced the residents of the town to watch, otherwise they would be captured and made slaves. Char gritted his teeth and said hatefully. But he obviously made a wrong calculation. He dared to capture my partner. I don't care whether he is a celestial dragon or earth dragon. If you provoke me, you will pay the price. Don't you say that if you offend them, the admiral will hunt you down. Then Freya hesitated, obviously worried that if Char killed the celestial dragons in anger, the admiral would hunt him down. We are a group. Kid is our partner. If he wants my partner's life, I will take his life. So what if Marine Admiral is chasing us? This remote East Blue, it's unknown how long it will take for Marine Admiral to rush from Marineford. When we enter the Grand Line, it won't be so easy for them to catch us. Char said bitterly. The reason why he has such confidence is not only because the sky is high and the Emperor is far away here, and Marine Admiral can't reach it. Another important reason is that he has a system. He believes that as long as he successfully enters the Grand Line, powerful prey will definitely appear one after another. At that time, both the improvement of Haki level and the speed of obtaining points will reach a new height. And maybe after opening a higher system authority, he will gain more heaven-defying abilities. When his strength becomes stronger, even if Marine Admiral doesn't come to him, I'm afraid he will kill him himself. What Kizaru Akainu, don't let any of them go. That's why Char dared to say such words. Advertisement. The next day, early in the morning, tens of thousands of residents of Logue Town came out of their homes and walked towards the coliseum in the center of the town. Each of them had a reluctant expression on their face. If they were not threatened, they would not go to watch any bloody fights. Because there were also their fellow citizens of Logue Town there. But under the threat of becoming slaves, they had to grit their teeth and go. Soon, these residents filled the huge coliseum in the center of the town that could accommodate tens of thousands of people. In the center of the infield stands, Saint Chamos was half lying leisurely under a temporary sunshade tent, directing a group of marine soldiers. The tall Benny Rear Admiral stood behind him expressionlessly, bowing his head from time to listen to Saint Chamos's orders, like a guard. At this time, a marine soldier ran to the tent and said something respectfully. Saint Chamos jumped up from his seat excitedly and spoke a lot with saliva flying. Then several marine soldiers took the order and retreated. Obviously, the death fight planned by Chalmers is finally about to begin. And he can't wait to watch this bloody feast. But they don't know. At this moment, at the Logue Town dock, a young man rushed towards the Coliseum with murderous intent. Today is destined to be a turbulent day. 045 Rescue. In the dark cell under the Coliseum, Kid, with his hands cuffed with seastone, lay limp in a large iron cage, waiting to be dragged out. In this huge cell, there are hundreds of iron cages densely packed, each containing a tightly bound pirate, bounty hunter, and even civilians. At this time, more than a dozen iron cages in the cell were empty, and the people inside had been dragged out one by one to participate in the fight. The remaining people sat in the iron cages in silence, most of them with desperate expressions on their faces. Although they all knew what fate they would face if they were dragged out, none of them wanted to be the next one. After all, the later they went out, the greater the chance of survival. At this time, 2 marine soldiers with chains came in, and everyone was immediately nervous. Ugly thing, that's you. The soldier stood in front of Kid's cage and said with a chuckle. After that, the 2 soldiers opened the iron cage and dragged Kid out, kicking him out of the dungeon. Char, please don't come to save me. I'll be dead if I mess with celestial dragons. Kid said silently in his heart. He was not worried about himself at this moment. He had been caught anyway. If he couldn't escape, he would have to fight. But he knew Char's character. He would never stand by and watch his companions fall into danger. But what was originally a strength was exactly what Kid was most worried about now. Because he fell into the hands of celestial dragons. If Char came to save him, he would inevitably clash with celestial dragons. With Char's hot temper, beating celestial dragons might be the least of his worries. In that case, Marine Admiral would definitely chase him. Although Char was strong, he was no match for Admiral. So Kid could only silently hope that Char would not come to save him and put the entire pirate group in a desperate situation. While he was thinking about it, he was taken to the inner field of the Coliseum. The dazzling sunlight shone on Kid's face, making him unable to open his eyes for a while. After a while, he opened his eyes and saw the scene in the field. The audience seats around the inner field were already full of townspeople, but their mood was not high, but rather low. Only the ugly celestial dragons in the center of the stands was shouting excitedly. Seeing this, Kid's anger rose in an instant. He stared at the dancing celestial dragons, as if he wanted to kill him with his hateful eyes. At this moment, the marine soldier opened Kid's shackles and kicked him into the field, and then the 2 quickly returned to the passage and closed the heavy iron door. I can't die. I want to be strong. I want revenge. This was the only thought in Kid's mind at this time. He shouted angrily, thinking of the opponent who had already killed him. At this time, Kid was like an angry lion, bursting out with the strongest strength, coupled with the unlocked steel fruit ability. Advertisement. In just a few rounds, the pirate on the opposite side, who had a bounty of at least more than 10 million Baileys, was blown up by him. Good. Very good. This fishman boy is really worth seeing. Go, drag out the stronger slaves and fight him one by one. St. Chalmers in the sunshade soft couch saw that Kid was quite powerful, and couldn't help but clapped his hands and shouted. The soldiers on the side immediately took the order and left. So, Kid started a long round of fighting. At the entrance of the coliseum. Report to the captain, all the soldiers of the branch have been assembled, please give instructions. A soldier saluted the officer in a cloak. Protect the entrance and exit of the coliseum for me. Not even a fly can fly in. If there is any mistake, you and I will lose our lives. The officer said sternly. Yes. After receiving the order, the soldier quickly took his men to block the entrance of the coliseum. The captain even stood at the front of the team, as if he was determined to defend the coliseum to the death. It's really annoying. How come such a big shot as the rear admiral of the headquarters came without saying anything? That's fine, but the key is that there are celestial dragons. After all this mess, how long will it take me to clean up the mess before I can appease the emotions of the residents of the town? The Marine captain thought with a frown. I'm so unlucky. Is there anyone? The depressed Marine captain suddenly saw a figure in the distance, walking towards the Coliseum step by step. For some reason, every time the figure in his eyes took a step, his heart would beat violently, and an ominous feeling emerged. Advertisement. Until the figure approached, he saw clearly that the person coming was a brown-haired boy. Hey, kid, this is not the place for you to come, don't interfere with official business, get out of here. The Marine captain, who was already in a bad mood, shouted angrily. The boy had no expression on his face, and simply said two words, get lost. The Marine captain was furious when he heard this. Boy, are you crazy? Get lost before I chop off your head. I told you to get lost. The boy growled angrily, and a sense of danger suddenly appeared on him. Conqueror's Haki. The Marine captain suddenly felt that the boy in front of him seemed to have become the source of a hurricane, and an invisible impact erupted from him. This impact instantly affected hundreds of Marine soldiers outside the Coliseum. The Marine captain felt like he was being pressed down hard by something, and then his head buzzed with a roar, and he felt like he was about to lose consciousness. But before that, he vaguely felt that he had been hit hard in the lower abdomen. It's over, something big has happened. This was the last thought that flashed through the Marine captain's mind, and he completely lost consciousness. And the soldiers behind him were even worse. After the impact, everyone's eyes rolled back and they fell down with a dull look. In just a moment, a Marine captain and hundreds of Marine soldiers were all solved. 046 You must die. Inside the Coliseum. 1, 2, 5, 10. Kid's eyes were bloodshot from killing. He couldn't remember how many necks he had broken and how many heads he had blown up. He had only one thought in his mind. That was to fight and fight again. He wanted to survive. The strong desire to survive made him exert his full strength to the fullest, but everyone has their limits. As the opponents arranged by St. Chalmers became stronger and stronger, after more than 10 fights, his physical strength was exhausted. At this time, he was relying on his willpower to hold on. Another hand-raised fist fell, and after a straight punch smashed the head of a one-eyed pirate, he finally couldn't hold on and fell to the ground. No. Am I going to die? The exhausted kid panted, holding the ground tightly with both hands to prevent himself from falling. Because he knew that once he fell, he would never be able to stand up again. I'm unwilling. I haven't taken revenge yet. I'm unwilling. Just when Kid thought he would die in this unwillingness and despair, something strange happened. The steel gate connecting the inner field and the entrance of the Coliseum made a deafening noise. A piece suddenly protruded in the middle of the 7 or 8 meter high gate, and then flew into the field with the surrounding walls. Boom. The dented steel gate fell to the ground and slid for more than 10 meters before stopping in the middle of the inner field. In the middle of the flat gate, a body wearing a marine cloak was firmly embedded in the gate. The man had a deep look of horror on his face, and his entire chest had completely collapsed due to the heavy blow. He was obviously dead. The Marine captain of Logue Town. After seeing the face of this man clearly, tens of thousands of people in the audience took a breath of cold air. Who is it? How dare he kill a Marine general so brutally in Logue Town, and he is a captain? The huge Coliseum suddenly fell into a deathly silence, and Benny Rear Admiral, who was standing next to St. Chalmers, had a sullen face. Click, click, advertisement. A sound of footsteps rang out, and the eyes of tens of thousands of people turned to the passageway. A brown-haired boy walked in slowly with an expressionless face. This man was Char, who came to rescue Kid. When he just entered the passageway, he saw Kid kneeling on the ground. At this time, Kid was already disheveled and ragged, and looked like he had fought to the death. Seeing this, Char was furious. Kid, he shouted, and ran straight towards Kid in the field. Kid heard the shout and saw Char running towards him. He smiled, his partner came to save him. His tense nerves finally relaxed, and he fell down. However, Char, who had arrived, caught him steadily, and then carried his body slowly to the edge of the field and put him in a corner of the inner field. The whole place was in complete silence, even the Marines seemed to be intimidated by Char's aura and forgot their movements for a moment. Here comes a powerful guy. Catch him. Let him fight with all the remaining slaves. If he wins, he will put a collar on me. I want to stay by your side as a watchdog. Saint Chamos finally came back to his senses, pointing at Char in the arena with excitement and said to Benny. Benny certainly saw that Char was very powerful, and the one who could kill Marine Captain must not be an ordinary character. Even if Saint Chamos did not say anything, he would personally deal with this guy who dared to be an enemy of Marine. Benny bent his knees slightly, then kicked down, and the whole person flew high. After passing a group of spectators, he landed steadily in the coliseum. Boy, dare to murder Marine soldiers, don't even think about leaving here. Benny Rear Admiral looked at Char and said coldly. Hearing this, Char had a strange smile on his lips. Leave here. Ha 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 ha. I don't plan to leave here today. Not only you, but also that damn Tianlong garbage, must die. Char said this almost in a roar. The determination and murderous intent in his words made the audience feel suffocated. Even Benny, the Rear Admiral, felt a chill. How dare you, you lowly thing, you actually threatened the noble descendants of the gods. Saint Chamos on the soft couch was so angry that his fat body trembled when he heard what Char said. Advertisement. When had he ever been threatened like this? He was the descendant of the god of creation. He had the blood of God flowing in his body, and everyone in the world was lowly in front of him. Even the Marine Admiral had to be respectful when he saw him. How dare this lowly kid call him trash? And threaten to kill him. Benny, I changed my mind. Catch him for me, I will cut off his meat in front of everyone and feed it to the dogs I just caught. I want to let him know what will happen if he disrespects the descendants of God. The furious Saint Chamos tried every vicious way to punish Char, and kept cursing on the soft couch. Tens of thousands of townspeople were already full of hatred for him, and seeing his face and mouth at this time, the hatred deepened. If it weren't for the hundreds of fully armed soldiers in the field, they would have rushed up and torn the damn fat guy to pieces. Benny remained silent about this, but because of his identity as Marine, no matter what the reason, he had to catch the boy in front of him. Benny looked at Char in the distance, drew the saber at his waist, and slowly said, Don't struggle in vain, you can't escape from my palm. I said, I don't want to escape, but I want you to die. Char roared, and his whole body burst out with momentum. Run. With a hiss, Char's figure disappeared. Benny, who had been paying attention to Char's every move, suddenly contracted his pupils. This is shaving. He was shocked. This is Marine's unique physical technique, and it is an advanced technique. How could this kid do it? At this time, Benny felt a sense of crisis in his heart, and he launched shaving, without thinking and dodged from the spot. Boom. Almost at the same time he disappeared, a leg slashed at the position where he was just now. The ground suddenly exploded, and the entire inner field was shaken. Can you run away? I said, you all have to die. Shaya slowly raised his head, his face ferocious. 047 Rear Admiral. The power of Char's kick made Benny's face change drastically after he dodged it. Because from the perspective of destructive power alone, this kick was no less than his full-strength attack. If he had hesitated for a moment longer, Benny, who was not yet prepared, would have been hit hard, and the consequences would be disastrous. Benny felt that cold sweat almost broke out on his back. A pirate from the small East Blue actually had the strength comparable to him. You know, he is the Naval Headquarters Rear Admiral. Compared with the branch Rear Admiral, his strength is at least several times stronger, and he is already a high-powered group in the Marine. Even if it is placed on the Grand Line, the reputation of the Headquarters Rear Admiral is enough to make most pirates flee. But what he couldn't figure out was that this little brat who looked only in his teens actually had the same strength as him. Where did this freak come from? Benny was shocked. He put away all his contempt and regarded the boy in front of him as the strongest enemy 25. At this time, Char slowly stood up from the ground, and looked at Benny for a few seconds. Shave. Run. The two figures disappeared together. Bang. A loud noise broke out in the venue, and the two people collided fiercely. The air where they collided was distorted for a moment, and then the strong impact force spread out, blasting a large circular pit on the ground under their feet. Char and the other man also showed their figures in the fierce collision, and retreated after losing their balance. But they stabilized their figures in an instant and attacked each other at the fastest speed again. Bang bang bang. The continuous collision sounded everywhere in the coliseum. Every collision between the two almost blew up the surrounding air, and the violent collision aftermath blasted the coliseum into potholes and flying gravel. Tens of thousands of people in the arena were horrified to find that they could not even see the figures of the two people, and the ground in the arena was already riddled with holes. Advertisement. Boom. An unprecedented loud noise set the entire arena in motion. After the collision, only two blurry figures were seen retreating rapidly, and they stood steadily after retreating dozens of meters. Da, da. In the deathly silent arena, a sound like a heavy gasp was heard. Char's shirt had been torn to pieces, revealing his strong muscles. Benny Rear Admiral on the other side seemed to be in a worse situation. His blonde hair, which was originally neatly combed behind his head, had been scattered and draped over his face in a mess. The cloak with the word justice printed on it was torn to half. Who are you? Benny Rear Admiral tore off the cloak on his back and threw it away, saying in disbelief. In the fierce fight just now, he had already tried his best, but he had no way to deal with the opponent. The boy's fighting instinct was so strong that it made his scalp numb. Every time Benny launched an attack, he had a vague feeling that he was seen through by the opponent, and almost all of them were blocked and parried accurately. This made him very passive and uncomfortable in the battle. What shocked him even more was that this boy had been fighting him with physical skills, and he was not at all inferior. You know, Marine is famous for its strong physical skills. As a rear admiral, Benny's physical skills can be said to be the pinnacle, but he can be regarded as a tough one. Benny has always been proud of his powerful physical skills, but he didn't expect to be outdone by a teenager. How old is this boy? How many days has he been practicing? If he is given enough time, I can't imagine how strong this boy will be. Benny began to panic. For the first time in a battle, he lost his absolute confidence. Who am I? Then let you die with a clear mind. I am Char from the Bloody Nightshade Pirates. Char said calmly. Bloody Nightshade Pirates. Char. Benny quickly searched for everything related to these two words in his mind. But no matter how hard he racked his brains, he couldn't think of where he had heard of the name of the Bloody Nightshade Pirates. Instead, he felt that the name Char sounded familiar. Advertisement. Quote dot 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 exclamation mark quote. Benny suddenly opened his eyes wide and looked at Char in disbelief. You are the murderer who killed Marine Division Rear Admiral Shirato in Shields Town. Yes, it's me. After getting Char's affirmative answer, Benny was even more horrified. He clearly remembered that the naval headquarters personally offered a bounty on him some time ago. According to the information he had, this guy named Char defeated Shirato Rear Admiral in a tragic way, which means that his strength should be similar to that of Rear Admiral. But the boy in front of him could force him, the Rear Admiral of the headquarters, into this state, and he clearly had the strength of Rear Admiral of the headquarters. This is impossible. What on earth has he been through? His strength has increased so quickly. I don't care what you have been through. 790. You are obviously a big problem for Marine. Today, even if I risk my life, I will kill you here. Benny, who had forced himself to calm down, had realized that this pirate named Char must not be left alive. He regained his spirits, held his saber in front of him, and launched an attack with all his strength. Hey, what's the point of risking your life? I said, you must die. Char sneered and went up to meet him, not afraid of Benny's risking his life. Because he was absolutely confident that he could kill this Rear Admiral of the headquarters. In the battle so far, he just wanted to test how much his strength had improved, so he had been fighting with physical skills and observation Haki. And his strongest trump card had not been revealed. Armament Haki. Facing Benny's full-strength sword, Char finally showed his fangs and condensed his strongest armament Haki on his fists. Char's fists turned black in an instant, and glowed with a cold blade. This scene fell into Benny's eyes, and he was desperate again. But at this time he could no longer stop the momentum. Bang! The ground shattered, and the dust exploded. 048 Benny's defeat. 2 more updates, please be the first to decide. 13x13x. Benny, who was trapped in the wall, felt a tightness in his chest, and couldn't help coughing out a mouthful of blood. Then he struggled hard and got out of the deep hole in the wall. The Rear Admiral of the headquarters is indeed very powerful. He only spit out a mouthful of blood after being hit by my heavy hammer. Char sneered, and he looked at Benny as if he was looking at a prey to be slaughtered. In the previous battle, Char mainly relied on physical skills, intending to measure how much difference there was between his own strength and that of the Rear Admiral of the headquarters. After finding out the strength of the opponent, Char used his hidden backhand, Armament Haki, striving to kill with one blow. But he didn't expect Benny to be able to withstand it head-on and continue to fight. It seems that the strength of the Rear Admiral of the headquarters should not be underestimated, and his Haki and physical strength still need to be improved. Char secretly sighed in his heart that he was not strong enough, but he didn't know that Benny's heart had already set off a huge wave at this time. Who is this guy? If I am not mistaken in that attack just now, it is definitely the armament Haki that can only be used by vice admirals and above. Haki. How could such advanced combat skills appear on an unknown little pirate? If he really has no special background, and is just a new pirate born in East Blue, he will definitely become a big problem for Marine in the future. Benny was horrified. In the 20 years of military service, he climbed from a soldier to the position of Rear Admiral, and experienced countless battles and killings. But he has never been so embarrassed. Especially when the opponent is a kid who has just become a pirate. This guy is indeed terribly strong, but for the justice and honor of Marine, I will solve this scourge even if I risk my life. Benny suddenly had such determination in his heart, and stood up straight despite the severe pain in his chest, with the saber across his chest. What? Do you still want to struggle in vain? Char said lightly. At this time, Benny was not a threat in his eyes. For justice, I will fight with my last bit of strength. Benny's momentum suddenly changed, and his expression was full of determination and persistence. As if he had become an unyielding warrior. Cross slash. Benny roared and rushed towards Char. At the same time, the saber in his hand quickly left a horizontal and vertical intersecting shadow in the air, and then a cross-light shadow with white light appeared, slashing like lightning. The momentum of this cross slash was quite amazing. The strong wind along the way blew away the gravel, and even the ground where it passed was scraped out with a deep gully. Go to your bullshit justice. Look at the audience around you and what you are doing. Is this what you Marines call justice? It's ridiculous. Then let's see if your bullshit justice can save you. Advertisement. Armament color. Hardening. Char gathered Haki with all his strength, hardened his hands to the maximum extent, and then crossed them in front of him. He was going to meet Benny's cross slash. Bang. A sound like a muffled thunder sounded. The cross slash hit Char. A figure took a few steps back in the dust, then stood firmly. When the dust cleared, Char's figure was revealed. He was unharmed. Is this your power of justice? It's just so. Char shook his arm and sneered. Impossible. This is impossible. Benny's eyes widened and he screamed in disbelief. You know, the cross slash is almost the strongest move he can use at present, but it can't cause any damage to Char. Haki's power is really terrible. No wonder Vice Admiral's strength is so unfathomable. But even so, I have to fight. 3 slashes in a row. Benny showed a determined look and swung his knife again. This time, Benny seemed to have used all his strength, and the veins on his forehead bulged. He swung 3 swords in succession, and each sword would trigger a flash of cold light, and each sword was faster than the previous one. The 3 cold lights chased each other, until the sword light approached Char, and they all merged together to form a cold and intimidating slash. And the speed was more than twice as fast as the previous cross slash. Before the slash approached Char, the intimidating momentum in the sword had already made Char's hair stand on end. Advertisement. This guy actually has such a method. Char was shocked. This level of slash was not something he could take with hardening. So he chose to retreat without hesitation. Run. In a flash, Char passed that fatal slash. The cold sword light just passed by his body, leaving tiny blood marks on Char's chest. Char broke out in a cold sweat. What would happen if he was hit? After he dodged the blade, it slashed directly into the stands at the edge of the inner field. With a loud bang, a gap was cut into the arc-shaped stands by this new blade, and at least dozens of townspeople who were originally sitting nearby died. Seeing that his desperate attack failed to hurt his opponent, Benny finally showed a look of despair, and the 3 consecutive slashes just now really exhausted all his strength. At this time, he could no longer keep his body steady, and his feet softened and he knelt down. However, he relied on a saber to support himself and did not fall completely to the ground. Wang Zhaohao. Hey, is this what you call justice? What's the difference between it and the robbers who burn, kill and rob? Char sneered, his face full of mockery. Victory is justice. You don't need to talk nonsense. Since I lost to you, you can kill me if you want, but you will face Marine's endless pursuit in the future. Benny, who was half kneeling on the ground, gritted his teeth and said. Kill you. No, I won't kill you. Since you want to play such a killing game, let you experience it yourself. Char showed an evil smile. What are you going to do? Benny suddenly raised his head, staring at Yuandao with his eyes, and suddenly a bad feeling rose in his heart. What am I going to do? You will know it soon. Char sneered and disappeared on the spot. 049 bloody killing, 3 more, please order first. Of course, Char didn't run away. On the contrary, his target was all the Marine soldiers in the coliseum. The next moment after he disappeared, he suddenly appeared next to a Marine soldier in the stands. Before the soldier could react, he chopped off the soldier's weapon with a knife, and then kicked him into the inner field. Then Char disappeared again. Then he kept repeating the action of appearing and disappearing. Every time he appeared, he must be next to a Marine soldier, and the soldier's fate was only one, that is, being deprived of his weapon and thrown into the inner field. At this time, Benny in the center of the field didn't know Char's purpose, which was to throw all the Marine soldiers into the inner field as prey. Benny struggled desperately to stop Char. But he was seriously injured and exhausted, and he was no longer able to fight. After struggling several times in vain, he could only watch with his eyes spitting fire, watching Char throw the soldiers in the stands into the inner field one by one. At this time, hundreds of Marine soldiers around the stands also fell into panic. Although they were numerous, they were only afraid of this enemy who came and went without a trace. The Marine soldiers finally lost their fighting spirit and began to want to escape from the Coliseum. But how fast was Sha Yasu 430? He could kill a soldier in almost an instant. So no matter how these soldiers fled, they could not escape the fate of being thrown into the arena. Soon, hundreds of soldiers were thrown into the inner arena like a pile of people, and they fell to the ground and groaned in pain. Tens of thousands of townspeople were stunned. Hundreds of fully armed soldiers were killed by one person. It was incredible. Not only them, but even Saint Chamos on the soft couch was so scared that his forehead was covered with cold sweat. He knew he was in big trouble, but he still had an idea in his mind. That is, he was a descendant of the god of creation, and this guy would never dare to kill him. So he got up carefully and prepared to escape. However, the fat body just stood up and was pressed down by a hand. Don't worry, it's your turn after they pass, wait here obediently, otherwise don't blame me. A cold voice sounded in his ears. It was Char, who looked like Shinigami. You are crazy. I have already ordered people to spread the news. I am a noble celestial dragons, if you dare to touch a hair of mine, you will regret it. Chamo's saint screamed with a trembling voice, holding on to the life-saving straw of Descendant of God tightly, trying to scare Char with it. Advertisement. You don't need to worry about my life, you should worry about yourself, I won't let you have an easy life. Char said coldly, kicked him down on the soft step, and then disappeared behind him. How dare you attack me? Impossible, you can't dare to kill me. Chamo's saint screamed ferociously, still not believing that this pariah, in his eyes, dared to take his life. Lin Feng, who left the stands, came to the cell where Kid was imprisoned in a few flashes. The slaves, imprisoned in the cell, had already been alarmed by the loud noise outside, and had been lying in front of the cage listening carefully. When they saw Char appear, they all showed a look of surprise. Listen to me, I'll give you a chance to survive now. Char said coldly. There are hundreds of unarmed marine soldiers in the field outside. I will let you out. I don't think I need to teach you what to do. When these slaves heard what Char said, their eyes suddenly showed a bloodthirsty light. You know, most of them are extremely vicious pirates, and they are irreconcilable with marine. This time they were caught by the marine and used as livestock to fight. CFDF, they already had a huge hatred in their hearts, and they wanted to tear these marines to pieces with their own hands. Now there is a chance for revenge, how could they let it go? Advertisement. Kill them. Almost all the imprisoned slaves were shaking their cages frantically and roaring. Very good. Use all your skills, slaughter as much as you want, let them taste the consequences themselves. Char continued to incite the emotions of these villains. Until everyone's eyes were red and the killing intent was strong, Char quickly opened all their cages. For a moment, dozens of vicious bandits rushed out of the cells like mad dogs that had broken free from their reins, shouting. The killing feast began. Dozens of crazy pirates, like lions rushing into a flock of sheep, began to fight with marines in the coliseum. You have to know that all of them are guys with criminal records that marines have offered rewards for. Although the reward amount is not tens of millions of ruthless characters, it is several times stronger than that of ordinary marine soldiers. What's more, this group of marines are already unarmed. Roars, wails, and cries of killing filled the entire coliseum. Blood soon dyed the entire coliseum red, which looked extremely bloody and terrifying. These marine soldiers were no match for the pirates at all, and were torn to pieces in just a few encounters. Hundreds of soldiers had lost at least 20% in a blink of an eye, and the speed of reduction was accelerating. The only one who had the power to resist was Benny Rear Admiral, but at this time his physical strength was at its lowest, and he could only barely protect himself. But his target was too obvious, and the number of pirates who came to besiege him was increasing. It seemed that it was only a matter of time before this naval headquarters Rear Admiral was killed by pirates. This is the game you like. How is it? Are you satisfied? Said Char with a sneer. Chamo's saint, who was sitting in front of him, did not dare to breathe, and his head was full of cold sweat. For the first time, he felt that there were people in the world who were more ruthless and cruel than him. What do you want? Chamo's saint said in a trembling voice. I told you not to worry, it will be your turn after they pass. Don't worry, your treatment will certainly be much higher than theirs. Char showed a weird smile at the corner of his mouth and said coldly to Chamo's saint. When Chamos heard this, he felt like he was falling into an ice cellar. 050 beat up St. Chalmers, 4th update, please order first. St. Chamos finally began to be afraid. For the first time, he felt the breath of death. He never thought that the identity of Descendant of God had no deterrent effect on the madman in front of him. Isn't he afraid of the endless pursuit of Marine Admiral? Isn't he afraid of living in fear for the rest of his life? What a madman. What should I do? What should I do? St. Chamos' mind was blank. He had no intention of paying attention to the fighting in the field. He only thought about how to survive. Char saw all this and was full of contempt for this cowardly rubbish. The fighting in the field continued. Dozens of vicious pirates were already bloodthirsty. Whenever they saw someone wearing a marine uniform, they would immediately pounce on him and fight. If they didn't have weapons, they would use their fists and feet. If their hands and feet were injured, they would bite. The crazy breath made them look like a bloodthirsty beast. Soon, only a small number of marine soldiers were left alive. They were all scared and tried to escape with tears. But where to escape? The only exit had been blocked by Char's iron door. They were trapped in a jar and could only be slaughtered. Benny, the only one still fighting, was completely exhausted after killing 5 or 6 pirates. He was surrounded and attacked crazily by a group of pirates. The first generation of Naval Headquarters Rear Admiral died in such a humiliating way. The other Marine soldiers saw their biggest commander being killed and finally lost their last bit of fighting spirit. They didn't even have the courage to escape. So they were quickly killed by the pirates, leaving a pile of broken limbs. The townspeople around had never seen such a bloody scene before. Almost everyone showed fear. Many people even started to vomit while holding their necks. But they didn't leave, because they knew that the damn trash with the glass cover had not been punished. They all looked at the boy standing in front of the couch, waiting for him to judge the scum. Hey, isn't this the killing game you want? What, are you scared? Advertisement. Char looked at the trembling Chamos saint and sneered. You can't kill me. Chamo's saint said tremblingly. Just because you are celestial dragons. Do you think I'm afraid? Char still sneered. Chamo's saint slowly took out a Den Den Mushi from his arms and said in a trembling voice, I have already reported everything that happened here to the naval headquarters, and the Marine Admiral has been dispatched. As long as you let me go, I can order them not to chase you and let them all go back. Char raised his eyebrows, looked at the Den Den Mushi in Chamo's saint's hand, and said, can this phone connect to the naval headquarters? Yes. Although he didn't understand Char's intention, Chamo's saint still replied. Then call naval headquarters. Char's mouth curled up in a strange arc. This time it was Chamo's saint's turn to be confused. What was this madman going to do? He actually asked to call Marine headquarters. Did he think it through and wanted to beg Marine not to hunt him down? Chamo's saint seemed to see a glimmer of hope for survival. So he immediately dialed the Den Den Mushi in his hand. Hello. This is Marine headquarters, Mr. Chamo's saint. Admiral Aokiji has come out in person. And the Marines of East Blue are also rushing to Logue Town at full speed. Please rest assured that Marine will do its best to protect your safety. As soon as the call was connected, such a call came from the other side. Aokiji has come out in person. And there are also Marines of East Blue. It seems that this scum has really notified Marine in secret. Even Aokiji has been touched. You really think highly of me, so I must die. Char said to the Den Den Mushi lightly. Who are you? Where is Chamo's saint? The voice on the other end of the Den Den Mushi was startled. Advertisement. Hey, I'm the one you want to kill. What? The person on the other end of the phone obviously didn't expect Char to be so bold as to contact them. On behalf of Marine, I warn you not to do anything inappropriate to Chamo's saint. We can consider not pursuing this matter. Consider not pursuing. Char laughed. Even with the back of his head, he could guess that he was fooling him. You know, in the Sabayati archipelago, Luffy just beat up the celestial dragons. Admiral Kizaru personally chased them. Please give me flowers. If it weren't for Pluton Rayleigh's obstruction and Tyrant Bear slapping them all away, I'm afraid there would be no Straw Hat Pirates in history. And Char has already threatened to kill celestial dragons, and the Marine side actually said that they would not pursue it. What a joke. What's more, he has already killed 2 Marine rear admirals and hundreds of Marine soldiers. Just based on this, he and Marine are already at war. How could he let him go? So it is said that too much debt is not a burden, so why not kill one more celestial dragon? He has long been fed up with this bunch of scum. I'm so sorry, this damn celestial dragon fat guy captured my companion and used him as a slave for fun. I'm not going to let him go. Char said lightly. Are you going to challenge the authority of the world government? The voice on the other end of the phone was anxious. Hey, if your so-called authority is to protect this group of garbage who sit and wait to die, then what's wrong with challenging them? You will regret it. The voice on the other end finally became furious. But Char didn't take this threat seriously at all, just put the phone aside, and then picked up the celestial dragon with one hand, who looked incredulous. Dragons, punched the glass cover on his head. Bang. The bubble hood shattered, and after Char's fist broke the hood, it continued to move forward and hit Saint Chamos in the face. Ah. Saint Chamos screamed like a pig being slaughtered, covering his face and screaming. How dare you hit me? Blood. This is the blood of God. You deserve to die. Saint Chamos, who found his face covered with blood, immediately lost his mind and began to curse Char with all kinds of vicious words. And Char's response was also simple and rough. That is, punching Chamos in the face one by one, and after a few punches, his ugly face was beaten into a bloody mess. Even several teeth fell out. Ah, you must die. Saint Chamos, who was leaking air from his mouth, not only screamed in pain, but also cursed Char. He has been completely crazy for a long time. 051 Slay the dragon. 5 more, please order first. When had Chamos ever been treated like this? He claimed to be the descendant of God, and he was a superior being wherever he went. Even the Marine Admiral had to be polite to him. How could he accept being beaten up by a country boy? He was crazy. The hatred of his self-esteem being crushed far outweighed his fear of death, and he cursed Char madly. But the harder he cursed, the harder Char beat him. He stopped only when Chamos' teeth were all broken and he couldn't speak clearly. The whole process was heard by the other end of the Den Den Mushi, but there was nothing he could do to Char except to stop him angrily. He could only listen to Chamos screaming like a pig being slaughtered. At this time, Char, who stopped, carried the bloody Chamos, 710, Saint, jumped from the stands into the coliseum, and slowly walked to the center of the arena. The pirates who had not yet left had already seen Char's cruelty and power. When they saw him coming, they made way for him. Until Char came to the center of the coliseum. He lifted Saint Chamos high and shouted, "Tell me loudly whether this rubbish should die." As soon as these words came out, they immediately caused a strong response. Who among all the people present did not hate Saint Chamos? Pirates were captured by him as livestock for fun, and fellow townspeople were also captured as slaves for no reason. Who did not hate him? Damn it, kill him. Such scum should not live in the world. 10 deaths are not enough. Pull out its skin. Pull out its tendons. Cut off his head. The anger of the people and pirates was ignited, and everyone shouted and demanded the execution of this rubbish. The conscious Chamo Saint turned pale with fear. Hear it, this is the dignity of the world government that you are trying so hard to protect. Everyone thinks he deserves to die. Char said coldly into the phone. You will regret it. The voice on the other end of the Den Mushi was extremely angry. Hey, do I have any way out? After that, Char ignored the Den Mushi and shouted to the entire coliseum. This kind of world trash, shameless scum, does not deserve to live in this world. Then let me judge him. Bring the knife, Char shouted. Advertisement. The pirate holding Benny's rear admiral saber was shocked when he heard this, and hurriedly handed the knife to Char. The sabers were passed from one pirate to another, and finally came to Char's hands. Char threw Chamo Saint to the ground and kicked him behind the knee. Chamo Saint immediately knelt on his knees and lay on the ground. Chamo Saint was so frightened that he kept whimpering with his leaky mouth, obviously begging for mercy. But Char would never let him go. He raised his knife and fell. Crack. A bloody head fell to the ground with a thud, and a large amount of blood spurted out of the headless neck, and then fell to the ground with a thud. Celestial Dragons was beheaded by Char. The entire coliseum was briefly silent, and then a wave of shouts broke out. This was the wild shouting of anger being vented. The Den Mushi that had been connected fell into silence, and the other party hung up without saying a word. Although the other party did not say a word, Char knew that an unprecedented storm was coming. Char threw down the knife in his hand, walked to the edge of the field, opened the big iron door, carried the kid on the ground and left the coliseum. Since Celestial Dragons was killed, this matter could never be resolved peacefully. So the most important thing at the moment is to leave Logue Town quickly. So Char rushed to the dock as fast as he could, and set sail in a hurry without even telling Freya what had just happened. Just a few hours after the Yasha left the Logue Town dock, a dozen black shadows appeared in the sea outside Logue Town, and were approaching Logue Town at a very fast speed. Advertisement. When these black shadows approached the dock of Logue Town, their faces were revealed. The dark blue hull, the densely packed firing ports, the ferocious main guns, these are more than a dozen fully armed marine warships. Report Captain, we have reached Logue Town. A soldier reported to the officer standing at the bow. After hearing this, the captain in a marine cloak immediately issued an order: all troops should be stationed in Logue Town. All pirates on record, regardless of the amount of the bounty, should be arrested. Not one can be spared. If they resist, they will be killed directly. Yes. After receiving the order, the soldier hurried away. Soon, a large number of marine troops entered Logue Town. There were 10 marine captains alone. There were countless lower ranks and soldiers. It can be seen that in order to protect Celestial Dragons, Marines spent a lot of manpower and material resources. When they found the headless body of Saint Chamos, they were all shocked and angry. They were shocked that someone actually didn't take Marine's pursuit seriously and dared to kill Celestial Dragons. They were angry because they knew that Marine was trying their best to protect Celestial Dragons, but someone dared to challenge the authority of Marine and even world government. This was a slap in the face. The tragic scene of Saint Chamos being beheaded soon spread throughout the Marine system, and the senior executives of the headquarters smashed countless desks in anger. The killing order issued by Marshal Sengoku himself was sent to Admiral Aokiji 5 times in a row. In order to catch all the pirates who challenged the authority of Marine, Marine used their super intelligence gathering capabilities. It didn't take long for Char's gang to be uncovered. They even found out how long Char had been picking up trash in the Kingdom of Goa and how many Baileys he had sold in Old Pete's shop. However, after learning about the growth of Char and his gang in detail, the Marine executives were even more surprised. Because the members of the Blood Yaksha pirates were all teenagers. Especially the leader, Char, was just a beggar who made a living by picking up trash a few months ago. This terrible growth rate frightened the Marine executives, so they became more determined to eliminate Char and his gang. For a while, Char's bounty soared to 200 million Baileys, and Freya and Kid also rose to 80 million. And Char and his gang didn't know all this yet. At this time, they only cared about one thing, that is, to get to the next destination as soon as possible, Upside Down Mountain. 052 Storm and Reward. 6 more, please order first. The severity of the Logue Town Celestial Dragons incident is far more than what it seems. Although the naval headquarters has sent Admiral Aokiji, one of the 3 admirals, to take action, and predicted the route of Char's group, and mobilized almost all the marine forces along the way to encircle and suppress them. But the Celestial Dragons still refused to give in. They believed that this incident seriously damaged their reputation as the world's highest nobles, and the authority of the Celestial Dragons was challenged. The Celestial Dragons of the entire Mariajoy were furious. For a while, Marshal Sengoku's Den Mushi kept Barabala, from morning to night, almost exhausted. There were constant calls from Celestial Dragons to put pressure on him, making his head almost explode. Aokiji, stop your lazy behavior and catch those bastards. I'm almost fed up with Celestial Dragons. Marshal Sengoku grabbed the Den Mushi, who rolled his eyes and shouted angrily. Yes, Marshal. Aokiji on the other end replied slowly and then hung up the call. He continued to ride his bicycle leisurely on the sea. In fact, the reason why Sengoku was so furious was not only because of the pressure from celestial dragons. Another reason was that this incident had seriously hurt the reputation of Marine. Just imagine, a celestial dragon was killed under the protection of the Marine Rear Admiral of the headquarters. Not only that, but even the Rear Admiral who led the team and all the Marine troops were wiped out by a little devil. As the external facade of the world government and the spokesperson of absolute justice, Marine was abused so badly by pirates. How could they save their face? Isn't this a loud slap in their face? Advertisement. So if they don't vent their anger, what dignity will Marine have in the future? Of course, they definitely don't want to publicize such a shameful thing. When the Marine troops arrived at Logue after the town was built, the first thing was to capture all the pirates in the record. No matter whether they participated in the incident or not, they were all executed. Then they used their power to intimidate the people of Logue Town and forbade them to talk about anything related to the incident. Although on the surface, the spread of the Celestial Dragons incident was curbed. But how powerful are the pirates' underground intelligence capabilities? In just one day, the whole picture of this incident spread among the pirate circles of the Grand Line. It even became a hot topic among the bigwigs. Hey, what a guts, he dared to chop off the head of Celestial Dragons. This bunch of self-righteous trash, who thought they were high and mighty and inviolable, are now getting their retribution. You know, there is no shortage of ruthless characters who are not afraid of death in this world. Quote. In a gorgeous room on the Grand Line, Doflamingo, wearing sunglasses, was lying on the sofa after listening to the report, and said with a mocking face. These idiots must be mad, ha ha ha. They are so angry, they killed a few more slaves in a rage, so that I can sell them the stockpiled goods at a high price. In a bar in District 13, Sabayati Archipelago. A tall woman with short hair sat on a high stool in front of the bar and carefully looked at an intelligence sheet in her hand. After that, she smiled and took a puff of cigarette, and said, I say, old man, the little guys nowadays are really getting more and more courageous. You guys are finally old, haha. Oh, what interesting things happened again. A white-haired old man wearing glasses was fiddling with some coding tools. He turned his head and asked. The old man had shoulder-length white hair casually draped behind his head, and his peculiarly shaped beard was very unique. It was the famous former right-hand man of the Pirate King, Pluton Rayleigh. The short-haired woman was the bar owner Zeki. Rayleigh couldn't help laughing after listening to Shaki's narration. Ha ha ha, it's really a newborn calf who is not afraid of tigers. Are the newcomers now so tough? It seems that I am really old. Although he was lamenting that he was old, Rayleigh's tone was not lonely at all, but very happy. I heard that there are several powerful newcomers in the Four Seas. I don't know what kind of waves these little guys will stir up in this great age of navigation. I am really looking forward to it. Quote. Not only Mingay, Rayleigh and others are talking about this matter. Almost all the well-known bigwigs on the Grand Line have more or less received news of this incident. While discussing it, they all vaguely felt that this incident would be a trigger. The inviolable image of celestial dragons has been challenged, and the authority of Marine has also been severely challenged. As the protagonist of the incident, Char has become an example of challenging the world government. It can be imagined that in this era of the rise of pirates, more and more newcomers will follow suit. Just when the whole world was shocked by the celestial dragons incident, the protagonist of the incident was hit by Lucky on the way to the upside-down mountain. Advertisement. Because not long after the Yasha left Logue Town, a familiar sweet reminder sounded in Char's mind. Congratulations on completing the hidden mission 433, Dragon Slaying. Quote. Slay the dragon. That kind of scum is worthy of being called a dragon. This task name made Char want to complain. However, when he heard the following reward content, the contempt on his face disappeared instantly, replaced by ecstasy. Slay the dragon. Slay the noble celestial dragons who claim to be descendants of God, and get a huge reward. Quote. Reward content. Increase the proficiency of 3 Haki points by 2 million points. 2 million. Char was stunned by this number. You should know that his current armament Haki has reached level 3, and the proficiency required to upgrade to level 4 is just 2 million. With such a reward, isn't it directly one level? Sure enough, when Char had this idea, the system prompted again. Your current 3 Haki proficiency is full, do you choose to exchange for the body tempering function? How can you refuse such a good thing? What's more, he is being hunted by Marine now, and it is the time to quickly improve his strength. Char chose yes, without hesitation. Quote. Suddenly, a familiar pain came over him, causing him to fall to the ground and scream. But underneath his painful expression was an excited heart, because he would soon become stronger. 053 Level 3 Authority, open. 7 more First Order. I don't know if it's because the 3 types of Haki were promoted at the same time, but the pain caused by the body tempering was extremely strong this time. Char managed to hold on until he was sweating all over and his limbs were weak. When the pain subsided and Char just stood up, the familiar voice sounded in his mind again. Your current Conqueror's Haki proficiency is full, do you want to choose to exchange for the body tempering function? What the hell? Char was stunned for a moment. Didn't I just exchange it? Why is it prompted again? Char hurriedly checked the system. It turned out that after the proficiency of the 3 types of Haki increased by 2 million points, Armament Haki just met the requirements for promotion to level 4. And the original level 2 observation Haki was still a little far from level 4 after being promoted by 1 level. Conqueror's Haki was promoted to level 3 in one go. Wow, ha ha ha, it's so cool. Exchange. Although Char had been tossed by the body tempering, facing the temptation of improving strength, he still chose to exchange without hesitation. But the moment he confirmed the exchange, a wonderful feeling spread all over his body. Not only was there no pain, but he felt a comfortable feeling as if his body was floating. This feeling came and went quickly, and disappeared in just a few minutes. Will it hurt to upgrade Conqueror's Haki? Char was a little confused. Indeed, since it was too difficult to improve the proficiency of Conqueror's Haki, this was Char's first time to upgrade Conqueror's Haki alone, and he didn't expect it to be so easy. Armed color tempering strengthens the body, and the sight color tempering seems to strengthen the nerves and intuition, so it hurts. But what is the function of Conqueror's tempering? This broken system doesn't explain it. Char thought about it carefully, but couldn't think of any possibilities, so he was too lazy to think about it. Anyway, it won't hurt to temper the body a few more times. Hey, it would be nice if there were something else as a reward. Char felt the changes in his body and thought with some regret. Ding, the system detects that all 3 of your Haki have reached level 3 or above, and has reached the level 3 permission requirement. Excuse me, would you like to enable level 3 permission? Advertisement. Char was stunned when he heard the voice, and then reacted instantly. Oh my god, level 3 permission. Ha ha ha, when your luck explodes, it's unstoppable, surprises come one after another. Enable. Char answered without hesitation in his delight. The request has been accepted, and the system has enabled level 3 permission for you, welcome to use it. Quote. As soon as the system voice fell, Char felt that the translucent system screen in his mind had some more functions. Char couldn't wait to enter the system to check. Soon he saw 2 new functions, Super Devil Fruit Encyclopedia and Haki Materialization Ability. Just from the name, you can tell that these 2 new functions are definitely not ordinary stuff. Sure enough, when Char learned about the functions of the new functions in detail, he was so excited that he ran back and forth on the deck. The Super Devil Fruit Encyclopedia, as the name suggests, is an encyclopedia that records various types of devil fruits. It has detailed introductions to the appearance, color and function of many fruits. It is said that Sanji, the chef of the Straw Hat Pirates, has seen the Devil Fruit Encyclopedia. But this is not the point. The point is that Char's Super Encyclopedia has a function that can be said to be heaven-defying. That is the Fruit Ability Modification function. In other words, if Char has a devil fruit in his hand, fruit, no matter which series it belongs to. As long as he has enough points, he can use the ability modification function to tamper with this fruit into any fruit in the Super Illustrated book. You should know that Char now has the ability to simulate fruits. As long as he has enough points, he can simulate a devil fruit for every ability user he defeats. If he cooperates with the ability modification function of the Super Illustrated book, then he can produce those super powerful Logia fruits continuously. Magma Limi, Bai Shuiwetu, Shock Fruit. Advertisement. Thunder Fruit, Mera Mera Fruit. My god, every 10 of them are the ability fruits possessed by the strongest. Ha ha ha. Kaido, the suicidal maniac, is still buying artificial fruits from Mingay, but he doesn't know that this leader can already produce Logia fruits. At that time, each person will be equipped with a natural fruit, it's terrifying to think about it. Char looked at the legendary fruits in the catalog and couldn't help drooling. But when he saw the points required to modify these fruits, it was like someone poured a basin of cold water on his head. It costs 30 million points to modify a thunder fruit. Why don't you just go and rob it? Char's face turned pale and he started to curse. None of these powerful Logia fruits require less than 10 million points to modify, and the cheapest ones cost 15 million points, which is simply a sky-high price for Char. You have to know that he only got 500,000 points by killing a branch Marine Rear Admiral before. If he wants to get 15 million points, doesn't he have to kill 30 Rear Admirals? What a joke, even if he has the time to kill them one by one to earn points, Marine doesn't have that many Rear Admirals for him to kill. As a result, Char's passion was immediately extinguished. Hey, let's put this aside for now, maybe there will be a faster way to earn points in the future, good Zhao. He was dejected and could only comfort himself like this. Wait, isn't there another one? Haki materialization ability. Let me see. Quote. Ha ha ha, it's great, it's great. Char, whose enthusiasm was frustrated, became excited again. This so-called Haki materialization function is Char's Armament Haki, which can be simulated into various solid shapes without leaving his body. It can be simulated into a weapon like the Aim no Kurosakumo sword like Admiral Kizaru, and can also be used for defense. This ability looks simple, just changing the Armament Haki that can only cover the body into another shape. But Char doesn't think so. He just thought about it for a while and found the terribleness of this ability. It can even be said that his strength has been qualitatively improved. 054 Marine appears again. Char couldn't wait to try this ability. He followed the method introduced by the system and quickly sketched out a prototype of a weapon in his mind, and then his mind moved. Buzz. A black light flashed in Char's palm, and then burst out from his palm, instantly condensing a black long sword with a metallic glow. It was exactly the same as Kizaru Admiral's Aim Kume sword. It's so light, I wonder how sharp it is. Char waved the long sword in front of him a few times and smacked his lips. So he found a samurai sword he had looted and chopped it down with the black, Aim Kume sword. With a light swoosh, Char felt almost no resistance, and the samurai sword broke, leaving a smooth cut. Oh my god, this is too powerful. Char stared at the Aim Kume sword in his hand in amazement. Try to simulate other shapes again. Wado Ikimonji, Kitetsu, Shisui. Char simulated all three famous swords used by Zoro, and even simulated the big axe of Sentomaru and swung it for a long time. Char stopped when he couldn't think of any other weapons. This shows how much he loves this ability. Because this is not just a fancy ability with a variety of appearances. What is the concept of weapons condensed by Haki? You should know that masters who are good at using armament Haki will wrap Haki around their weapons in battle. In this way, not only the hardness and attack power of the weapon are greatly improved, but also the entity of the Logia fruit ability user can be directly attacked to cause damage to them. What about weapons condensed entirely by Haki? The lethality will only be stronger. And as the strength of Haki increases, this terrible lethality will only become more and more perverted. Then Char will have a huge advantage in future battles with masters. This is just an improvement in attack. Advertisement. In terms of defense, the improvement brought by materialization also surprised Char. After a few simple attempts, he figured out how to use the materialization ability for defense. As long as Char has a thought, a black Haki protective layer will appear on the desired part. At first glance, it seems to be no different from the hardening of armed color, but after careful observation, Char realized that these are two completely different concepts. This layer of protection formed by materialization is not firmly attached to the body, but there is a gap between the body and the body, as if it is suspended on the surface of the body. The advantage of this is that when Char resists external attacks, the impact force does not act directly on him, but needs to be buffered by this protective layer first. It can be said that his ability to resist attacks has instantly improved by several levels. It's just a pity that this protective layer, like the hardening of armed color, can only protect part of the body. It can't cover the whole body with hardened armed color like a monster like Virgo. But Char guessed that as long as Haki became stronger, the area that could be covered would become larger and larger. Maybe after Armament Haki was upgraded to level 7 or 8, he could cover the whole body. It must be said that the upgrade of various Haki levels and the opening of the third level system permissions have made Char's strength on both offense and defense qualitatively improved. He believed that he would not be afraid even if he faced Marine Vice Admiral now. Char, our way is blocked by several Marine warships. Kid's voice came from the deck outside. After being rescued by Char and brought back to the Yasha, this guy drank 2 bottles of healing potions and physical potions and soon recovered his vitality. He has been busy on the ship these 2 days, transforming the Yasha according to the ideas provided by Char. When Char heard that a marine warship appeared, a strange smile immediately appeared at the corner of his mouth. Hey, I was just worried about where to test my improved strength, but it's so thoughtful to deliver it to my door. He hurried out of the cabin and jumped onto the bow to watch. Sure enough, 7 shadows appeared far ahead. From the vague signs on the sails, it can be judged that these 7 ships must be marine warships. What should we do? Our ships are not equipped with long-range weapons, and their strength is not as strong as warships. We will be in trouble when they enter the shooting range. Please give me flowers. At this time, Kid came to Char and frowned. Advertisement. Kid's worries are not unreasonable. Although Char and he are both very strong, the premise is that they can fight the enemy. If the opponent does not intend to fight head-on at all, but instead bombards with cannons from a distance, then the Yasha will definitely not be able to withstand it. What a trouble, if there is any way to cross this distance. Char kept thinking about countermeasures in his mind. Got it. Char suddenly thought of a way to cross the sea. Moonwalk. In addition to the ability of the fruit itself, this is the only way to achieve flight. As long as the physical skills and techniques are strong enough, it is possible to use moonwalk to cross the distance of cannon shooting. But he can't do it. My body is very strong now, maybe I can try it. Char thought secretly. Indeed, the 6 styles of marine physical skills require 2 high physical skills, which makes it very difficult to popularize. Generally, only senior generals can use it, and very few of them can master it. But after many Haki tempering, Char's body has reached an unprecedented strength. It is not impossible to use moonwalk. Char thought about it again in his mind, the principle of moonwalk: take a deep breath and then jump up gently. Then he exerted force with his feet and stepped quickly in the air. Pa, pa, pa. A few crisp sounds of air bursting sounded, and Char seemed to step on the invisible ground in the air, and actually jumped dozens of meters in the air. It's done. Ha ha ha. Char, who fell back on the deck, shouted excitedly. Then he stared at the shadow of the ship in the distance and sneered, Kid, you and I turn the bow immediately, don't let the Yasha enter their shooting range, I'll be back soon. After saying that, Char took a step forward, and then there was a crisp sound of pa, and the whole person flew towards the fleet in the distance along the sea. 055 Terrifying Defense. Looking at Kid, who was flying into the air on moonwalk, a determined look gradually appeared on his face. He had understood it since Char rescued him from celestial dragons. For him, the enemies that the bloody Nightshade pirates will face in the future will become stronger and stronger. And with his current strength, there are not many places where he can help Char. I must work harder. Improve my strength. Kid clenched his fists. Flagship of the Marine Fleet. Report to the Rear Admiral, the target is turning the rudder and seems to want to escape. A soldier trotted to the bow and reported to the Marine General standing at the bow. The Rear Admiral was wearing a marine cloak and stood at the front of the warship with his hands behind his back. After hearing the soldier's report, he sneered. HMPH, is 403, afraid now. Where is the momentum of fighting against my marine in Logue Town? Pull up the sails and chase at full speed. I want to make him understand that marine is the strongest on the sea. If you dare to challenge the dignity of marine, I will blow that broken ship into pieces. The Rear Admiral said the last part, and the whole person burst out with an amazing fighting spirit. The soldiers were frightened by this momentum and hurriedly received the order, using Den Den Mushi to pass the order to each warship. So this fleet composed of 7 marine warships chased after the Yasha aggressively. But just a moment after the fleet launched the pursuit. The marine soldier ran to the bow again, but this time his face was full of panic. Report to the Rear Admiral, there is an unidentified object in the distance ahead approaching us. Very fast. The Rear Admiral was shocked when he heard the words, and immediately took the telescope and searched the sea in front of the fleet. Soon, he found a fast-moving figure. When he used his eyesight to see the shadow clearly, his pupils suddenly contracted and his face showed a look of shock. Quote. How is this possible? Rear Admiral said in horror. Moonwalk is a trick in Marine 6 styles, and he recognized it immediately with his eyesight. Advertisement. But this was not what shocked him. What made his hair stand on end was that the distance between the two sides was so far that even their warships' main guns had not entered the range, and someone dared to use moonwalk to cross such a chosen sea area. What a powerful physical skill and physical strength this requires. He dared not assert how many such masters there were in Marine, but he was sure that he could never do it. The enemy's strength was beyond his expectations. Where did this monster come from? Quick, order all warships to turn their main guns and carry out a covering bombardment on the target. He must be stopped for me. Rear Admiral almost roared and gave the order. He knew that such an opponent must not be allowed to board the warship, otherwise the consequences would be disastrous. When the soldiers heard Rear Admiral, the Admiral's tone showed that he did not know the seriousness of the matter. He did not dare to delay for a second and passed the order to every warship. For a moment, the bows of the 7 warships simultaneously emitted the roar of mechanical operation, and dozens of black gun barrels were all aimed at the sea in front of the fleet. Fire! Fire quickly! The firepower commander shouted urgently. Boom 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 boom. The deafening sound of artillery continued to sound, and the hot shells blasted towards Char with a whistling sound. The reason why the Marine Rear Admiral was so horrified was that he could not believe that Char had such amazing physical strength to support him to cross such a long sea. He thought that the opponent had such strong physical strength, and his strength must be terrible. That's why he acted so panicked. In fact, he was misled by this point. What he didn't know was that Char, who was crossing the sea on moonwalk, had already drunk several bottles of physical potions on the way. I was really careless. I didn't expect moonwalk consumes so much energy. If it weren't for the stamina potion, I would have definitely failed this time. Quote. Char felt a little scared and quickly exchanged for another bottle of stamina potion and drank it. Okay, SK, UK. Suddenly, a shriek from far away sounded in Char's ears. He looked carefully and found a sea of black spots heading straight for him. Bombs. So many. Shocked, Char quickly exerted force on his feet and took hundreds of steps in the air in an instant. His figure was seen changing directions quickly in the air, quickly dodging the bombs. Advertisement. 1. The shells were dodged by Char, and they were shot into the water and exploded into a water column more than 10 meters high. But the concentrated fire attack of 7 warships was no joke. No matter how fast Char moved, he was dodging in midair after all, not as agile as on the ground. So it was inevitable that he could not avoid the situation. Suddenly, a strong sense of crisis rose in Char's heart. Armament color. Shield. In a flash, Char's body curled up into a ball, and a layer of black protective layer instantly condensed in front of Char's arms, just blocking the incoming shells. Boom. The explosion sounded, and a ball of terrifying fire instantly swallowed Char. The impact of the shells and the impact of the explosion blasted Char heavily into the sea. Ha ha ha. No matter how arrogant you are just a little pirate. This is the latest super main gun developed by Professor Vegapunk of the headquarters. Marine battleships can't withstand 2 shots, see if you still survive. The Rear Admiral on the Marine flagship saw this scene and laughed. But the next second, his ecstatic expression was fixed on his face. Because he clearly saw that the guy who should have been blown to pieces actually emerged from 4.1 seas and attacked again on moonwalk. This is impossible. Even the Vice Admiral can't guarantee that he will be unscathed after being hit by a cannon. How can he still get up? Quick, Fire at full force. Don't let him get close. Rear Admiral shouted ferociously. The materialized protection is so cool. Although Char looked shabby at this time, his face was full of ecstasy. Because under the protection of the materialized shield, the terrifying blow just now, except for the pain all over his body, did not cause any major damage. How could he not be excited? Hey, bombard me, right? You wait. Char stared at the fleet in front of him and smiled coldly. 056 The Marine fleet is wiped out. With a strong defense as a backing, Char suddenly became full of confidence. His footsteps became faster and faster, bringing a series of pa sounds of breaking through the air, and he went straight to the flagship. A moment later, he was only 100 meters away from the flagship. Hey, this time it's my turn to perform. Char sneered, and his figure instantly shot out dozens of meters, and suddenly jumped high when he reached the flagship. He rolled in the air, twisted his body suddenly, and then quickly got off the seat at a terrifying speed. Level 4 Armament Color, Battle Axe Split. The Marine Rear Admiral standing on the bow ready to fight changed his face and retreated without hesitation. Because he knew that this attack was aimed at him, and he had no confidence to take it. Retreat. Get off the bow. He retreated violently and only had time to warn in fear. Char's heavy blow, like a meteor, had already landed heavily on the bow. Boom. All the soldiers felt a violent vibration under their feet, and then they found that the deck under their feet began to tilt. It turned out that the bow of the flagship was pressed into the water by Char's full force. So in the horrified eyes of hundreds of Marines on the other 6 warships, their flagship stood up like an upside-down onion. And with the downward force, nearly a quarter of the hull was pressed diagonally below the sea surface. The soldiers on the ship screamed and jumped into the sea one by one. Finally, the overloaded hull made a click. It broke from the middle. Beasley Rear Admiral stood on a floating wreckage, staring blankly at the warship that had been broken into 2 pieces and gradually sank into the sea. He knew that Char's attack would be terrible, but he didn't expect it to be so terrible. What kind of power is it to break a Marine warship with one blow? He originally had a trace of fighting spirit, but now he has completely lost the desire to fight. He began to jump on pieces of wreckage, preparing to escape to other warships first. You are a Marine Rear Admiral, are you going to flee without a fight? Besides, did I allow you to escape? Advertisement. A cold voice sounded above Beasley's head. He was shocked when he heard it, and subconsciously looked up. He saw that the scary guy who even the main gun of the warship was immune to death was looking down at him from above with a mocking look on his face. That look was as if he was looking at an ant. You. Knowing that there was no way out, Beasley showed a resolute look, shouted angrily and drew out his long sword. Ah, die. He was so crazy that veins bulged on his forehead, and he swung the long sword so hard that even his shadow could not be seen. A series of sharp slashes broke through the air and pointed directly at Char in the air. Char stepped on moonwalk and changed direction more than a dozen times in the air, avoiding all the slashes in an instant. Then he bent his legs slightly and kicked with all his strength. Pop! A burst sounded. Char shot at Beasley like lightning, and his speed seemed to be faster than the slash. Ah, you die. Beasley's face suddenly turned red, and he raised a long sword with his backhand, and then stabbed it from behind his head to the front of him. A huge sword light with a momentum several times greater than the previous one slashed out like lightning. Even the air along the way was slightly distorted. Beasley has risked his life. However, facing this fatal slash, Char did not show any emotion, but a sneer on the corner of his mouth. Beasley, who saw this scene, was shocked and had a bad premonition in his heart. Sure enough, in midair, Char's palm flashed with black light, and he turned the black long sword condensed by Haki. He turned his wrist, held the black long sword horizontally, and then slashed fiercely at the oncoming slash. Snap! The sound of explosion rang out. The fatal sword light emitted by Beasley exploded instantly like broken glass. It was cut off by Char alive. Impossible. As soon as the scream started, Beasley was cut across the neck by the Haki long sword. A bloody head flew high, and the expression of fear and disbelief was still frozen on his face. Marine Rear Admiral, killed by one blow. The Marine soldiers on the other 6 warships witnessed this process with their own eyes. A chill rose from the hearts of each of them, and the look they looked at Char was as if they were looking at Shinigami. Turn the main guns around. Blow him up. The firepower commander came back to his senses from his fear and yelled at the Den Den Mushi at the top of his lungs. Everyone immediately understood his idea. This demon was not something they could defeat, so they could only pin their hopes on Professor Vegapunk's main gun. What about the soldiers who fell into the water? Advertisement. A Marine soldier asked weakly. Don't worry about them. Shoot indiscriminately immediately. Quick. The commander roared with bloodshot eyes. The fear of death finally overcame reason, and the main guns of the 6 warships immediately aimed at Char's position and launched a concentrated fire attack. Water splashed around Char, and many engineers who were not struggling in the water were instantly blown into slag. Ha ha ha. Is this your justice? It's so funny. All of you go to hell. Char laughed loudly and stepped on the moonwalk and ran straight to the nearest military 360 ship. The commander of the warship was so scared when he saw Char coming. Stop him. Stop him at all costs. All Marine soldiers raised their guns and shot at Char madly. However, all this was in vain. Ordinary bullets hit Char's Haki protection, only making a clanging sound, without even an itch. DZ. Char landed steadily on the deck of the warship. The massacre began. Char shuttled back and forth between several warships like a demon reaping lives. Wherever he went, there were screams and cries. Marines also went crazy. In order to attack Char, the main guns of each warship fired randomly. Even if Char was on a friendly ship, they would still shoot. Not long after, the remaining 6 warships were all beaten to pieces and were about to fall. In fact, most of the Marines died in infighting. Headquarters. Beasley Rear Admiral has been killed. Fleet destroyed. Request reinforcements. The last few soldiers who refused to give up were still crying for help from the headquarters. However, this could not change their fate. Char raised his sword and ended their lives. So far, the Marine fleet was completely destroyed by Char. 057 angry. Hey, Bisley fleet, what happened? Answer me now. The other end of the Den Den Mushi asked eagerly after hearing the scream. Char bent down to pick up the Den Den Mushi, sneering, stop screaming, your shitty Bisley fleet has become history. Who are you? The other party was surprised to hear Char's voice, but quickly reacted and screamed, you are a pirate from the Blood Yasha pirates. Hey, you are not stupid, but you are going to use Rear Admiral and this kind of junk to deal with me. It's not good enough. Char said arrogantly. The sarcasm in his tone was so strong that the Marine on the opposite side was so angry that his nose was smoking. In fact, he was deliberately angering the other party. It seemed easy to completely destroy the Marine fleet this time, but if it weren't for the heaven-defying defense skill of Haki materialization, the roles of both sides might have been reversed. The main guns alone were enough to bombard Char half to death. So Char was still worried about whether Marine had any other secret weapons. After all, Vegapunk, a monster that claims to have mastered the world's 500-year leading technology, could possibly make anything. So he tried a little to see if he could get anything out of it. Sure enough, the exasperated Marine immediately said unconvinced, don't be too arrogant. Aokiji Admiral has already been dispatched, you won't be able to jump for a few days. What? Aokiji? Although the other party did not mention anything related to weapons, the information that Aokiji was dispatched was enough to surprise Char. Although he knew that provoking celestial dragons would attract Admiral's pursuit, what he never expected was that even if he was in East Blue, where the Emperor was far away, Admiral would come all the way to deal with him. Are you kidding me? Are you Marine Admirals just eating and waiting to die? You are so idle. Char cursed and hung up the communication angrily. Quote. The Marine commander was about to lose his temper when he found that the communication had been cut off. Advertisement. However, he suddenly remembered that the Beasley fleet had been annihilated, and his expression changed drastically. He quickly took out a pen and paper and drafted something quickly. Soon, an urgent report was sent to the desk of the marshal's office. Marshal Sengoku sat in silence on the chair after reading the report. His expression could not be seen clearly under the reflective glasses, but the fearful pressure emanating from him showed his inner anger. What happened, Sengoku? I haven't seen you so angry in a long time. Don't be angry. Come and have some snacks. A white-haired old man sitting on the sofa next to him said with a smack of his lips. What time is it now? Still drinking tea here. Be serious, Garp. Sengoku blew his beard and roared. He really couldn't do anything with this old comrade, so he could only hand the report to Garp in a bad mood. Oh, the pirate who killed celestial dragons is a little guy, even Rear Admiral is not his opponent. What a funny little guy, I don't know who is better than my grandson, ha 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 ha. After reading the report, Garp not only didn't get angry, but laughed. Sengoku looked at Garp's heartless appearance and covered his face speechlessly. I have asked Aokiji to deal with this matter personally, but with that guy's personality, I guess he will hide on some island to sleep again. It's really infuriating. When Garp heard this, he held his belly and started laughing again. Don't laugh. Garp, recall all the troops that have been dispatched. That guy is not someone they can handle. Sengoku pinched his brows and sighed. Why don't we let Vice Admiral do it? Garp stopped laughing and said solemnly. No, just let Aokiji go alone. Our actions are enough to give celestial dragons an explanation. There is no need to go to great lengths. Sengoku paused and continued. Besides, the sea has been very unstable recently. The situation in New World is very tense. Whitebeard and Red Hair's team have been moving around a lot recently. They are seriously short of manpower and need to send more troops over. As for that little guy, double the reward and spread more information about the reward in the first half of the Grand Line. Let those money-loving desperados deal with him. Okay, I'll go arrange the troop dispatch. Oh, by the way, Sengoku. What's the matter? Advertisement. You really don't want a donut. Quote. Soon, Garp passed the order to the entire marine system. Tens of thousands of wanted posters for Char and his entourage were printed overtime, quickly distributed to various marine branches, and then posted. In this latest batch of wanted posters, not only did Char's bounty soar to 200 million Baileys, but even Kid and Floyd's worth also soared to 100 million. For a while, the name of the Blood Yasha pirates quickly spread on the Grand Line. At this time, on the Yasha far away in East Blue, Floyd and Kid were looking at Chongya, flying back, from a distance with a thoughtful look on their faces with their mouths wide open. Is this guy Char really a human? Destroying the Marine fleet alone is indeed a bit unhuman. Floyd and Kid chatted dully. However, when the two learned that Marine Admiral Aokiji had personally gone out to capture them, they instantly became nervous. Oh my god, that's the strongest Marine. What should we do? Good Lee Kua. Floya showed a panicked look. Even if she thought that Char's strength was perverted, she didn't think that Marine Admiral was something they could match now. There is no other way, we can only hurry up and cross the upside-down mountain. After entering the Grand Line, the environment will become very complicated, which will help us hide. Char said solemnly, but he was also secretly glad that it was Aokiji who came this time, not Akainu or Kizaru. Because among the three Marine Admirals, Akainu hated evil and would kill anyone he thought was against justice. And Kizaru, that wretched old man, seemed cynical on the surface, but in fact he was moody and cruel. So these two people were the ones Char was most reluctant to meet. On the contrary, there might be some room for maneuver for Aokiji, who values friendship and is clear about right and wrong. 058 The strongest enemy appears. In the next few days, the voyage became surprisingly smooth, and Char and his group never saw the shadow of Marine again. Without the pursuit and interception of Marine, the daily voyage of the Yasha could be handled by Freya alone. Char and Kid started their old business of crazy sparring again. Anyway, after the Logue Town incident and the complete destruction of the Beasley fleet, Char's originally bottomed-out points rose to several million. Although these points are far from enough to modify the fruit, they are more than enough to exchange for physical strength and healing potions for training. It seems that he was stimulated by Char's powerful strength. Kid has been training very hard these days, and he has drunk hundreds of bottles of physical strength potions alone, which makes Char feel very painful. Stop fighting, you two. Look ahead. Freya shouted excitedly on the observation deck. Char and Kid, who were fighting, stopped their actions immediately and ran to the bow to look. Soon, the two saw a black shadow appear on the sea level far ahead. This black shadow was tightly attached to the sea surface, extending infinitely to both sides, with no boundaries in sight. What is that? It looks so big, Kid said with a face full of shock. Char was excited and said excitedly, that's the Red Line. The entrance to the Grand Line is there. What? The entrance to the route is on the continent. Kid said in amazement. Char was stunned when he heard this, as if he was surprised that Kid came here without even knowing the information about the Grand Line. So he simply told Kid about the Grand Line and the upside-down mountain. So we are going to take a boat to the mountain now. Kid said half-believingly, after all, this kind of thing is too shocking for him. That's right. You will understand in a while. Char looked ahead with expectation and said excitedly. As the Yasha moved forward, the Red Line gradually became taller in their sight. It was not until they came to the front of this continent that they really felt its grandeur. The edge of the continent seemed to be split apart, and it was vertically protruding on the sea surface. Char and his companions looked up along the cliff and found that they could not see the end at all. Because a large part of the continent was covered by clouds, they did not know how high it was. Advertisement. Right in front of them, the towering continent had a crack that could accommodate three Yashas traveling side by side. The turbulent sea current was rushing up along this crack. Not to mention Kid, even Char, who had seen it in anime, was shocked by the spectacular scene in front of him. What are you still standing there for? Hurry up and retract the sails. Freya had already climbed down from the observation deck and shouted at the two. Char woke up as if from a dream, and hurriedly pulled Kid back to the deck and began to retract the sails of the Yasha. Because after entering the entrance of the route, the ship was completely pushed forward by the current, and the speed was very fast. If the sails were not retracted, it would be very likely to capsize due to the forces in multiple directions. Char and his companions did not dare to neglect it, and pulled the rope desperately, and finally retracted all the sails before reaching the entrance. Kid, Aya, a little left. A little more left, otherwise we'll hit it. Char lay on the bow and nervously directed the direction. Kid and Freya held the rudder and kept adjusting the direction. Finally, with the cooperation of the three, the Yasha rushed into the entrance dangerously. As soon as they entered the entrance, they felt the Yasha's hull shake, and then it was pushed forward quickly by the surging sea current. Ha ha ha, Grand Line, here I come. Char lay on the bow and shouted at the waves hitting the side of the ship. Although Freya and Kid did not show such excitement, they still couldn't hide the excitement in their eyes. They knew that the end of the sea current was the place that countless pirates yearned for all their lives. Grand Line. The Yasha was pushed up higher and higher by the sea current, and even passed through the clouds at the waist of the Red Line. After half a day, the ascent speed finally slowed down. What appeared in front of the three people was a huge intersection. Including the one they were in, there were four turbulent currents converging here. ... Asterisk asterisk. It happened to be from the April Sea in the southeast, northwest, and northeast. When the Yasha was pushed to the confluence, the hull was hit hard by the combined force of the four currents and immediately flew to a downward channel. Advertisement. So the Yasha began to fall rapidly like a roller coaster that had passed the highest point. Ah, Froya just held the mast and screamed all the way. Char and Kid also held on to the side of the ship tightly, looking nervously ahead. Finally, an inlet appeared at the end of the site. At both ends of the exit, stood two tall lighthouses. Char recognized it was Cape Twin. They finally crossed the upside-down mountain and came to the starting point of the Grand Line. I'm finally here. Marine, Four Emperors, and Shichibukai, you wait, Char, will start from here and knock you down one by one. Looking at the estuary in the distance, Char's heart was surging. But as the Yasha gradually approached Cape Twin, Char found something wrong. He saw from a distance that there seemed to be a white spot in the middle of the sea where the channel and the sea intersected. When he used all his eyesight to look carefully, his face changed drastically. It was a person. This person wore a navy blue shirt on his upper body, a white vest on the outside, and white trousers matching the vest on his lower body. He had a head of curly hair combed on both sides of his head, and a funny eye mask in the middle of his forehead. At this time, he was dozing off on a piece of floating ice with his left hand supporting his head. It was Aokiji, one of the three marine admirals. When Char saw him, his face turned extremely ugly. But it was impossible to turn the ship around and escape at this time. He could only watch the Yasha heading straight for Aokiji. The sound of the waves, splashed, rang out. The Yasha finally broke away from the rapids and rushed into the Sea of Gemini Cape. Finally here, I've been waiting for a long time. The man sitting on the ice floe opened his eyes, yawned, and said lightly. 0593 moves agreement. Hearing that lazy voice, Kid and Freya, who were shaken by the rapids, only then noticed Aokiji's existence. When they saw the sleepy man clearly, a look of fear suddenly filled their faces. If it was a Marine Rear Admiral or even a Vice Admiral in front of them, they might not have lost their composure like this. After all, they have absolute confidence in Char's strength. But Admiral is different. This is the top existence that represents the highest combat power of Marine. Among hundreds of thousands of Marines, there are only 3 in total. This shows how transcendent the status of Admiral is. It also reflects how terrifying their strength is. What? It turns out they are just a few little brats. They made me come all the way here. Aokiji put his hands in his trouser pockets and said depressedly. The tone that seemed to be indifferent to 163 made Char's nerves tense up all of a sudden. Because he knew that this was not contempt for the enemy, but absolute confidence in his own strength. Wouldn't it be too embarrassing to attack a few little brats? What does the life and death of the celestial dragons have to do with me? But I can't disobey the orders of old man Sengoku, which is really a headache. I just want to thoroughly implement lazy justice, why throw a lot of troubles to me? Aokiji stood there and talked to himself, covering his head, looking very headache. Char and the other 2 looked at him nervously, feeling speechless, but not daring to relax. Ah, got it. Aokiji showed a look of realization on his face, clenched his right hand into a fist, and tapped lightly on the left palm. Little devil, I will give you 3 moves. If you can take them, I will let you go. If you can't take them, then I will be your master. Aokiji said proudly, as if he was very satisfied with his idea. Char was delighted when he heard this. This is why the admiral he most wanted to meet was Aokiji. Aokiji was casual by nature and had a clear sense of right and wrong. As long as he personally believed that it was right, he would stick to his own ideas even if it violated the concept of marine justice. From what he said just now, calling celestial dragons worms, it can be seen that he not only had no good feelings towards celestial dragons, but even had disgust for them. Perhaps it was because of this that Aokiji felt that Char's actions were not so unforgivable. But after all, the superiors had given the order, and it was really unacceptable to do nothing, so he came up with the agreement of 3 moves. This is the best outcome for Char. If it was Kizaru or Akainu, they would have killed him long ago. Do you keep your word? Char asked tentatively. First, I'm a Marine Admiral after all. How could I lie to a little brat like you? Advertisement. Aokiji picked his nose with a look of disgust. After getting Aokiji's assurance, Shaw finally put down his heart. It's not that he is cowardly, but it's really not the time to confront the Marine Admiral head-on. Although Char's strength has improved at a terrifying speed along the way, he knows that he is still a little behind in competing with the Admiral. If he fights Aokiji now, it is completely beyond his ability. So what he needs is time. As long as he gets through this time and gives him some time, Char is confident that he can surpass Admiral's strength. When they meet next time, will he still take Admiral seriously? Especially those 2 bastards Akainu and Kizaru, who can hardly wait to deal with them. Aya, Kid, you stay on the boat. Char stared at Aokiji in front of him and said solemnly. Kid and the other kid knew that they couldn't help Char much, and nodded reluctantly. Char took a deep breath and then took a step forward. Moonwalk. Pa pa pa. Char walked in the air and ran towards Aokiji on the sea at a high speed. He knew that the destructive power of masters like Aokiji was no joke. He didn't want to turn the Yasha into the main battlefield, so he chose to take the initiative. Oh, moonwalk. It's a solid physical skill, but it doesn't work on me. Aokiji raised his eyebrows, seeming a little surprised that Char used moonwalk. As he spoke, a thin layer of white ice began to appear on the surface of his body, which was a characteristic of elementalization. Char of course knew Aokiji's ability, so he pretended to attack with physical skills to confuse Aokiji. Aokiji saw Char's punch coming, and a faint smile appeared on the corner of his mouth, not taking it seriously at all. But just when the fist was about to touch Aokiji's body, armament color, harden, Char shouted, and his fist turned black in an instant. Advertisement. Aokiji was shocked when he saw this. Freeze. In a flash, he retreated violently, and at the same time a wave of water exploded from under his feet, instantly condensing into a hard ice wall. The Admiral-level combat awareness was immediately revealed. Bang. The ice wall exploded, and Char's dark fist went straight out from the center of the wall. However, blocked by the ice wall, the power of the fist was almost weakened by 70% to 80%, and it was already soft and had little strength. Seeing that his attack failed, Char retreated to a distance without thinking and confronted Aokiji. Hey, it almost happened. But it's really surprising that such a strong armament Haki actually appeared in the body of a little kid. Aokiji touched his belly and said in surprise. I say, are you interested in joining Marine? With your skills, you can get a vice admiral position in a few years. Char rolled his eyes and said, who wants to join Marine 2.6? I want to find Raftel to be the man of Pirate King. That's a pity. Quote, I was tricked by you just now, I won't be polite next time. Aokiji said regretfully. As soon as he finished speaking, his whole aura suddenly changed, like a sharp sword drawn from its sheath, chilling. Swish. Char's eyes blurred, and he lost sight of Aokiji, and at the same time, a strong sense of crisis rose from his heart. He instinctively twisted his upper body and swung hard. Armament Haki, hardened. There was a loud bang. Char's swinging fist collided fiercely with Aokiji's ice-like fist, followed by a piercing pain. Except for his fist wrapped in Haki, his entire right arm was covered with ice. 060 I owe you a favor. Char decisively used the force of the impact to retreat dozens of meters away, covering his arm with an ugly face. Ah, the stinging pain that penetrated into his bones made him groan in pain. He tried to move his right arm, but found that he could no longer move. Damn it. Char cursed himself for being careless. He knew Aokiji's frozen fruit ability. The terrifying thing about this ability is that all substances that are hit or touched will be frozen. If it is a living thing, it will immediately lose its combat effectiveness and enter a state of suspended animation. What's more terrifying is that if the frozen creature is smashed by external force, it will die immediately. So Char was cautious at the beginning and did not dare to have too much contact with Aokiji. If he failed to hit him, he would choose to retreat. Unexpectedly, he was still hit. You are worthy of being a Marine Admiral. So scary. Char stared at Aokiji in the distance nervously and gritted his teeth. After Aokiji hit Char with a punch, he did not chase him, but stood there with a surprised expression. Oh, you surprised me again. You actually escaped. But it won't be so easy next time. Aokiji's mouth corners slightly raised, and his figure disappeared again. Char, who had been vigilant, shrank his pupils and reacted instantly. Moonwalk. With a few light snaps, Char jumped dozens of meters into the air. Since he couldn't beat Aokiji on the plane, he could only plan in the air. Sure enough, the moment he jumped off the sea, Aokiji's figure appeared in his previous position. However, Aokiji only paused for a moment, then broke through the thin ice on the sea surface and shot towards him like a sharp arrow, with a terrifying speed. Facing the aggressive Aokiji, Char knew that he must not have physical contact with him. With a quick thought, a black light flashed in his palm, and a 3-foot-long sword appeared in his left hand, and he chopped down at Aokiji who was rushing towards him. Aokiji finally showed a look of surprise when he saw this scene. With his eyesight, how could he not see what Char was holding? It was a weapon completely condensed by Haki. Advertisement. Few people knew better than him how terrible this weapon was. As long as the strength was enough, it would be the nemesis of the Logia fruit ability user. Even if the enemy was a little kid, he would not dare to be so arrogant as to let this sword hit him. So in an instant, Aokiji turned into a piece of ice, and then under his own control, it shattered. Countless ice fragments scattered, making Aokiji's sword hit nothing. Your strength really surprises me again, and I can't help but want to kill you. The ethereal voice sounded in Char's ears, as if it came from a very far place, making it difficult to grasp the direction. For a moment, Char's hair stood on end, and a chill rose from the bottom of his heart. The ice fragments in the air quickly reorganized and condensed into a figure in an instant. The tall figure opened his arms behind Char. Frozen moment. Oh no. Char was shocked. Aokiji's movements were extremely fast, and it was impossible to dodge. Was he going to die like this? He was unwilling. At the critical moment, Char quickly shrank into a ball and used the 4th-level Armament Haki with all his strength. Armament Haki, materialized protection. Perhaps because of the threat of death, Char felt that his Haki was unprecedentedly majestic, like a torrent that instantly filled his body, forming a layer of dark protection. Asterisk. The world in front of Char was instantly blocked by a layer of ice, and the biting cold air hit him, causing him to feel severe pain all over his body. But he was ecstatic in his heart. He knew that he had made the right bet. Although his whole body was stiff and in unbearable pain, he was conscious, which meant that his body was not frozen. His Haki protective layer worked. It was just that in front of the Admiral, his armament Haki was not strong enough and could not completely resist the power of the ice fruit. But it didn't matter. Aokiji had used up 3 moves, and he was safe. However, the facts were not as he imagined. Advertisement. The moment Char used the materialized weapon, Aokiji's mentality changed. He felt a hint of danger from this kid who repeatedly showed his terrible potential. This gave him an impulse to break his promise. I just pushed you lightly, it shouldn't count as one move. Aokiji let go of the ice in his arms and pushed it down to the frozen sea. Char, who was frozen into ice, fell rapidly. At this speed, he would definitely be smashed to pieces. Char, Kid and the other 2 who saw this screamed in fear. Kid ignored the danger of falling into the water and jumped off the boat, running desperately on the ice, trying to catch Char. But it was too late. The ice that Char turned into hit the ice heavily and exploded instantly. As the broken ice splashed, Kid and Freya's hearts sank. How could it be? Aokiji, who was still in the air, looked down at the place where Char fell to the ground, with a look of astonishment on his face. Just where the ice broke, a man stood up. It was Char. Haki. It's really surprising. Aokiji fell back to the sea, and said this as if talking to himself, and then looked at Char expressionlessly. Dawn. Marine Admiral, are you going to regret it? Char had already stood up with the help of Kid, and said tremblingly. Aokiji still had a blank expression on his face and said nothing. I don't know what he was thinking. The 2 sides were in a stalemate. It wasn't until a long time later that Aokiji covered his head and sighed. It's really a headache. Why are you bragging? I'm going to be nagging by old man Sengoku again. As he said that, he turned around and walked to the shore of Gemini Cape, slowly pushed out a bicycle, and walked away. Until his figure was far away, the lazy voice came from afar. You used 4 moves, so I owe you a favor. But don't do anything bad, otherwise I won't let you go. After hearing this, Char and his group stayed where they were, staring blankly at Aokiji's figure disappearing in the distance.